call to order this special meeting of the City Planning Commission, January 9th, 2018. Happy New Year, everyone. Will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we have our new planning director. Mr. Baumgarten, would you like to introduce our new economic development director?
Community development director.
Community development
director.
Yes.
Tim McLean joins us. His most recent position prior to this was he was a city manager of the city of Wayland, but he has local roots going all the way back to his days as an intern with the city of Troy. I won't say how long ago it was. Yesterday. There you go. We're all 29 in our minds, right? But excited to have Tim on board as our community development director. Has a lot of experience in this regard. Has a strong management background. So as we've been talking about, I think for just about a year now, excited about the direction we will take what we used to call our building and planning department as we remodel it into a community development department, and one that does just that. It's representative of our community. So expecting big things from Tim, starting tonight.
Okay, Mr. McLean, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Commissioner Kaplanski.
Here.
Commissioner Murad.
Here.
Commissioner Richardson.
Here.
Commissioner Shadle.
Here.
Commissioner Kempner.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Here. Present.
Chair Buckler.
Present.
And Commissioner Tangari is absent this evening.
Is this my copy?
All right, could we have an approval of the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Note that the minutes are not available to us, so we'll refer those to the next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Support.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we have one item to add to the agenda this evening. We've got the schedule of Planning Commission meetings for 2018. With one revision to that, I would like to add regularly scheduled meeting for Tuesday, January 23rd at 7:30 p.m.
I'll agree to that change.
So will I.
Can you please call the vote, please?
Murad.
Yes.
Richardson.
Yes.
Shadle.
Yes.
Kempner.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Barnett.
Yes.
Buckler.
Yes.
Tangari is absent.
Okay, communications. We have some that are associated with items on the agenda. Do we have any other communications outside of that?
None at this time.
Okay, thank you. Now is the time for citizen comments. Citizens are welcome to come to the microphone and provide comments on any item not on the agenda. We have a site plan review and a public hearing and an application for a planned unit development on the agenda for today. But if you have any other topic, you are welcome to come to the microphone. Please state your name and your city of residence.
Charles Terrell from Berkley. I was just wondering why we're having this meeting this evening. There's been no official communication that I've seen as to why the meeting was moved to tonight. Per the Planning Commission bylaws created by the Planning Commission for the Planning Commission, approved by the Planning Commission, meetings are to be regular meetings are to be the fourth Tuesday of the month, except when there's a holiday that may be in confliction, either be a conflict due to a holiday. The second Tuesday of the month, per the bylaws, are to be for work sessions. And tonight's meeting is termed a special meeting. So I'd like some kind of an official explanation as to why the rules are not being followed. The bylaws are not being followed, and having a special meeting when this could have been, nothing I saw on the agenda was that special, could very well be handled the fourth Tuesday of the month.
Well, we are allowed to call special meetings. It was felt that we wish to move this up on the agenda item. It was the desire of the applicants that they move it up, and it was within our purview to do so. There's nothing in the ordinance that doesn't allow us to hold a special meeting. We will still have a regularly scheduled meeting.
There's nothing in the bylaws that allow for special meetings.
I will note that our city attorney's in attendance this evening and did not do so by being hoodwinked. He was fully aware of the meeting and understands that we are in full compliance with the city's ordinances.
There is authority to have special meetings. It's in accordance with state law. There's nothing in the bylaws that contradicts that.
There's nothing in the bylaws that allow it.
There's nothing in the bylaws that
Prohibit.
talk about the price of food in China either. It's not prohibited. It is allowed under state law.
So anything that's not prohibited is allowed.
Well,
Consistent with state law, that is correct.
Jim Cox, Oxford and Berkeley. If I understand this correctly, if this is a special meeting, unannounced or whatever, anything can't be approved tonight, right? Or
no, it bears the same weight as any other meeting, and this was duly public noticed in all the proper channels. So all the business that takes place here is no different than under a regularly scheduled meeting.
but it's not a regular meeting, right?
Regular meetings must take place in the month. We can have any or as many special meetings as we like.
So whatever you decide here tonight, there won't be a reason to have another meeting, right?
Well, if the subject matter that we were discussing has been resolved.
Because there's no agenda, you have no agenda out here. Where
We did publish an agenda. The agenda was published on the website, and it was public noticed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we usually have them out here on the table, but
I'm sorry, do we have an extra agenda for Mr. Cox?
You can have mine if you want it. Want mine, Jim? I mean, it said, I know we published it out there and. Thank you.
Kurt Height, 3525 Robina. Just in regards to a special meeting, and I understand that the developer wanted to move it up, and, okay, so you guys moved it up, that's fine. The only thing I was concerned about is, we knew, everybody involved kind of knew that this is kind of a big issue, and it's very time-consuming. And it just worries me that there was something else that was put on the agenda, and now there's a third thing put on the agenda, and we know that there was going to be a lot of time that was going to be required for this anyways, and, you know, when you're running short on time, you're going to start pushing people and saying, oh, we got to stick closer to it because we're running out of time. And it bugged me that knowing that you put a special meeting on the agenda, on the calendar for the PUD, knowing that it's going to be such a big topic, and there's going to be a lot of people that want to speak, that now we have other things that are splitting the time up. And I just hope that if we have another meeting that we make special for this deal, that we cover just that, so that if there is anything else that has been left out of information that should have been supplied when the application was done, then I wish that we can allow everybody to have enough time to talk about it. Thank you.
Are there any other citizen comments? All right, we'll move on to our first order of business, which is site plan review, SP 12-17, Klaji Eby, did I say it correctly? Are you here? Yes, and your architect. 3170 11 Mile Road, north side of 11 Mile Road, between Gardner and Griffith Avenues. Tax ID number 2518-453014 is requesting site plan approval for a building expansion. This is their second time in front of the PC, so please tell us what you've come back with.
Good evening. My name is Artur Kokai, residing at 13105 Eddington Drive in Commerce Township. So, can everybody hear me okay? So we took into consideration the review from the board, and we updated our site plan. I mean, the addition is pretty small. It's fairly straightforward. I did make some changes to the dumpster enclosure. Now it is masonry. The dumpster enclosure also includes the grease container as well.
It's always the new guy.
I added the bumper blocks for the parking, I added the loading area, and I also submitted a detail of the stone veneer and how that's gonna be installed in the building. And I believe that was pretty much it.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the commission? Ms. Kapelansky?
Thank you. I noticed on your loading area here, it's blocking a lot of the parking spaces. When do you expect deliveries to happen? Would that be off hours?
Well, I'm gonna have the owner answer that, but typically deliveries are, they take a few minutes.
You need to come to the microphone, please. Please come up to the microphone so we can see you and hear you.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the delivery myself every day, so it's gonna be in my van. It's not gonna be a big truck or anything like that, so I think it's not gonna be a problem.
Okay. That was all.
Any other questions? Marty?
Thank you. Good, you put the parking blocks in, that's good. Now, these are all minor things, and some were picked up, some weren't. I think you need a van space for your barrier-free, which is an 8-foot space and an 8-foot aisle, not a 5-foot aisle. Okay, I brought that up. I think I brought that up last month. It's section 1106.5 in the code. So now you have 14 spaces, parking spaces. You're only required 13. Okay. Now, and also, where's the grease container?
It's gonna be in the dumpster enclosure.
Where? You got a 10 by 10 dumpster enclosure, about 8 by 8 inside. Where are you going to put a dumpster and a grease container?
Well, typically you can put it in there. Maybe you can have a smaller container. Or I guess we could extend the dumpster enclosure if that is the case.
That's good, because since we have an extra space, how about we put 9 on the west side here instead of 10 spaces? You expand the van space, the aisle, to the 8 feet, and you expand the dumpster enclosure. In our write-up, it has a different number. Oh, where is it? Mr. McLean. It indicates 18 by 12, the proposed enclosure, 18 feet by 12 feet. Now, that'd be great to hold the dumpster and the grease receptacle, but it's shown as 10 by 10 here. So I don't know if there was a discussion. And I think it needs to be bigger. You can't put both of those items in the dumpster. So I would suggest, since you have an extra space, and that's great, I would suggest that you probably take a space out, provide a proper aisle for the barrier-free space. And if it only needs to be 5, that's fine. But I believe it needs to be 8 if you have one.
I gotta check that. I believe you're right as well. I gotta
Okay.
do another check.
Well, luckily here we have the space to do everything. Okay, and then extend the dumpster, make it wider so you can get the grease receptacle in there too, and that would work. Okay.
Okay.
My other sorry, I'm going to be coughing all night here. My other question was regarding the finished material. Now, most manufacturers of thin stone don't want it coming down to grade because of various reasons. It wicks up moisture, any frost heave, they go popping off. It's not a good thing. And I don't see any provisions in here that that's showing that it's held up above grade a certain amount, and whatever it is.
So I guess there's a couple of things we could do. I did provide this detail that comes from International Masonry Institute. This should have been in your packet.
I did get that.
It shows it off the ground on this one.
It's here.
On
Does
the
it?
photo.
Oh, yeah, let me see it. I gotta find it.
On the photo. Page 2.
On the photo on page
Lower
2,
right.
on that sample.
Yeah, right,
At the-
lower right corner.
The guy that's my shape is standing next to.
Hard.
Okay, well, is that your intention? I didn't notice it was on the sample. It was obviously a trade show or something. I didn't notice that sample was sticking up 4 inches off the ground. Is that your intention?
So it could be done a couple of ways. So this could be one way. The other way, we could put some sort of a concrete curb against the building there. I do realize it's a high traffic area, the salt and the snow and so forth.
Well,
So
that'll
we-
heave with the pavement, so I think you'd be better off, honestly, just to hold it up.
Hold it off the ground?
Whatever, I don't know what's underneath there. And that's for it's just for the longevity of the building.
No, absolutely. I did bring that up to the owner as well. That was a really good observation. But the way this is shown here, there's certainly nothing wrong with doing it that way. We can make
As
that provision.
what is shown?
In the little,
Oh, on the photograph?
Yeah.
No, if you're holding it up 4, 8 inches, whatever, that should be fine. But you got to treat what's underneath there with something. I honestly, I don't know what's there now. What is there now?
It's a block.
it's just
Oh, it's
concrete
just
block,
block wall?
CMU block.
Yeah, that's perfect. Hold the stone up, whatever inches the manufacturer recommends. You're still gonna get salt and, people kicking it and salt all over it, but whatever the manufacturer recommends, and and that's fine, you don't treat it. And that's not gonna be a condition of the project, that's just something I think the owner would like to have, so these things aren't blowing off in a year, in a winter or two.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
I agree.
okay. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, sorry,
That's
Ms.
okay.
Chairman.
Mr. Ms., oh, yeah,
It's been
it's just the
18
same.
years I've been saying
okay.
Mr. Chairman. That's all I had. There are DPW, Fire Department, City Engineering comments. None of them seem to be major, so
No.
that'd be part of the record.
Any other comment from the Planning Commission?
Yeah,
Mark?
I asked this last time, you weren't here,
Sure.
so I apologize for asking it again, but how close is the nearest residence to the dumpster? It's not indicated on here.
So if you're looking, I guess, to the north of the property, there's a parking lot that belongs to, I guess would be the property to the west. And I believe there's a residence there behind the parking lot.
Okay,
From what I recall,
You're 60, 70 feet.
Yeah,
it's a house, right? That's what I thought.
probably 60 feet or so.
Yeah.
would you agree with that, about 60 feet?
I wouldn't say right now, but more or less, I mean, you got it's a parking lot, so 20-foot spaces for cars, 24-foot drive, you got about 40 to 50 feet.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments?
One more. It's good that the architect's here. He can answer some questions, because we kind of bombarded you with things last month, and you're in the restaurant business, not the construction business. So just as, for future applicants, please have your architect here. It helps a lot.
Sure. Do we have any other questions of this applicant?
I just have a couple comments.
Sure, go ahead.
So, a couple items that were in our packet from the DPW director, recommending that you verify all the public utilities, including the sewer and water services. And that when you submit your plans for permit, to also indicate storm system, where the catch basin is, how the parking lot drains.
Okay.
And you need to keep the restricted flow catch basin cover in place. And yeah, so you're just resurfacing, so you don't need to do anything for stormwater. That was it.
Thank you. Will I be getting a copy of those comments?
I
Yes.
think, yeah, I think you will, yeah.
Get a copy of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this,
Yeah, you will.
the engineering department should provide those to you, yeah, when you come in for your site plan, for the actual engineering
Yeah, they
approval.
will.
All right, so what is the will of the planning commission? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I will, but I lost my sheet here.
SB 1270.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve site plan SP 12-17. And the only real condition is let's double check the requirements for the barrier-free parking space, and probably need to expand the width of the dumpster for the grease receptacle. And they have an extra space, so they should be able to accommodate it.
All right. Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
All right, could you please call the roll?
Shadle,
Yes.
Kempner,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Barnett,
Yes.
Kapelonsky,
Yes.
Murad,
Yes.
Buckler.
Yes. Richardson. Richardson.
Oh, Richardson.
Yes.
Apologies.
Right. Well, very good. Good luck. Go forth and
Good luck.
make your improvements so I can get
Thank
back
you.
to having
Have
breakfast.
a great evening.
Okay. So now, for what everyone's been waiting for, I assume, because I don't know that they were here for the site plan review for the former Nip and Tuck, is the public hearing for Berkley Coolidge LLC regarding the southwest corner of Oxford and Coolidge, parcel ID 2518-431-015 through 017, and a portion of 2518-431-022 is seeking input and consideration of an apartment and townhouse development as a planned unit development in accordance with section 138-534 of the Berkeley City Code. So, a couple of things. This is a public hearing. There will be, in order to accommodate all people, we will have a timed limit of around 4 minutes. We do request that you respect that. We will have a timekeeper on this, so that gives everybody an opportunity to speak, as well as everybody an opportunity to get home while it's still January 9th. And this will be the public hearing portion for this particular project. If the project were to change substantially in the future, and I mean substantially, there would have to be another public hearing. But at this case, for this design, for this particular development as proposed, this is the hearing. All of those documents have been posted. If you have questions or need to see copies of them, I think we have them. If you need to review some detail, there will not be a presentation by the applicant at this time. That will come under their request for the PUD and site plan review.
Ms. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Smith,
if I may,
certainly.
I'd like to take a few minutes before we proceed. I'd like to briefly address an item that came up at our December meeting. I believe if we talk about this, maybe with a short discussion, there's a lot of people here, and it may save us time tonight as this hearing and this public hearing and progresses, if that is okay.
Have I ever quelched you before?
Well, I interrupted, so, thank you. Near the end of the meeting last month, a citizen asked several questions regarding the La Salette building. And one of her comments, I see her out there, good. She said it kind of looked like a 6-story building. She was referring to the element that, protrudes off the top. We don't have our machine on. But in the middle of the building, there was an element that stuck up against the roof. That was a fair question, absolutely a fair question. In reply, the applicant's architect did a pretty good job describing that element as a roof screen or penthouse to hide rooftop equipment. I might have added to his comments. I don't recall exactly. She seemed satisfied at the time by the description and moved on to her next question. Well, somebody wasn't satisfied. The next day or so, this showed up. And I'll read it to you. It says, in bright red and yellow, call to action, stop the 6-story high-rise. Now, that's fine. And it has links to city council. Please call your city council member. It's all over the place. The Berkeley Residents Against Residential Rezoning website, Facebook, next door Berkeley Huntington Wood pages. It's everywhere. You can't avoid this. In fact, if anybody hasn't seen it on the Planning Commission, I have some copies. So, is the author here? Please. Is there many authors? It was just
No, me.
okay. Thank you.
I consider it a six-story building.
Okay, so, as I mentioned, we thought it was pretty clear what this element was or was not, and now that I have it, it's this element right here.
And you guys also said it was a six-story, but it's set back, so you didn't think it was an issue?
Hold, please, I don't think we said that, but
Yes,
go
you
ahead.
did.
After seeing this document, this document, I pored over the building code local ordinance. I'll tell you, I honestly could not find anything that puts this building into either a six-story or high-rise category. I mean, you obviously researched this for your statement, for this, and you probably found something I don't know about. So could you enlighten me?
Okay.
Of what in the code or the ordinance?
Actually, well, first I want to get into, back in March, it was either March or April when he did the actual presentation, but I believe it was the preview in March. You had a discussion with him about the original building that was 61 feet if they counted the roof as living space. In the discussion, if you took off the party area at the top and only counted what was presented for the rest of the building as occupancy, it was still like 53 feet high. And at the time you had a discussion with him, and you told him, well, can you get it to come down a little bit? And then Joe said, I could probably shrink the floor, and I could probably shrink the floor to probably a foot thick because it has so many walls in it, and therefore we can get it down. And you said, that's good because you do know why you want to get it below 50 feet. And he says, he said something, you said, no, do you know why? And he said, no, why is that? And you said, because if it goes above 50 feet, it's a high rise. And so you clarified that. You said, you followed that up with, you said, if you look at this building, and you gave the address to the building that you worked on, you said, that's why I stuck at 49 feet, because had I done it at 50 feet or higher, they would have considered it a high rise. And so I took your description and applied that literally, meaning that it doesn't matter, to me it didn't matter what anybody else thought. And nobody else disagreed with you at the time that if this building came in above 50 feet, you guys were going to consider it a high rise. And that was also backed up by the fact of using the developer's measurements. Amy included in her deviation table, not for regular multifamily housing, but she actually included deviations for a high-rise district because that was the only thing that building would fit under.
Okay, I do remember that conversation now that you mention it with Joe. And the way I remember it, and you're right, it's probably 6-7 months ago, the question was, is the roof occupiable space? And at the time, it might have been up at 60, 61 feet. And I asked him, does that count as a floor?
Mm-hmm.
He did not know the answer. I did not know the answer. I still don't know the answer. Because it disappeared when the rooftop activity space disappeared. So it doesn't
Right, but the rest of the conversation was about the building below that.
I understand. Roof screens and penthouses, which this is, as it was described, is a penthouse or maybe roof screen or combination of the both, is not a story. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, it's not described in our zoning ordinance, and that's something we have to talk about when we go in the future and talk about our zoning ordinances. I think we need to address roof screens. I think we're the only community around that doesn't, so that's something we'll have to look at in the future. So we don't address it. The building code, 2015, which we're under, is very clear as to what a roof screen and penthouses are. And I can read it to you if you want, but they are not a floor.
No, that's fine. You guys didn't say it was a roof screen last time. You said it was a sixth floor, but it was only in the center, and it was set back, so you didn't think it was a problem. That's what was said by
let me
Mrs.
finish.
Buckler at the last
I know
meeting.
are you talking about last month?
Yep.
No, very clearly, it was a roof screen or penthouse. Never came up about it being set back. I never said anything about
Okay,
it.
I can probably get the video and cut it out for you.
Okay.
We'll play it back next
That's
time.
fine. But the bottom line, I lied apparently 6 months ago. It's not 50, it's 55 feet, but that doesn't matter. I looked in the
Yeah, that's
code.
fine. That's fine. So now we got a building that's right on the cusp. I mean, six
But
more
it-
inches and
but-
it's 55 feet.
But the penthouse roof screen is not, by definition, an occupiable floor.
Okay.
So the top floor of this building is at about 42, 43 feet.
The top floor goes as high as 55.4
Okay, well,
feet. And this building right here?
I'll read it. Section 403. I'm going to read it. Okay, I just, we've got to be very careful of what we say here. 403, high-rise buildings. The provisions of this section shall apply to all buildings having occupied floors located more than 55 feet above the lowest level of fire department vehicle access, ground. So, I said 50, I didn't have a code in front of me. So, what this is saying is that a building that doesn't have its top uppermost floor, if it's less than 55 feet, it's not a high-rise, done.
Right, so it's right on the border of being a high-rise, is what you're saying.
Floor.
No.
Floor.
6 inches. If it was above 55, right, the last floor, if the whole floor, you're saying?
The floor, not the ceiling, the floor.
Okay,
So we're at 40.
but if we go by our city, in our city code, it only describes a high-rise as being anything over 3 stories,
No.
and as high as it does.
I respectfully disagree. Our building code, or I'm sorry, our zoning ordinance refers to high-rise. It also refers in the sections that it talks about 30-foot max, 40-foot max, whatever, depending on what the ordinance is. It doesn't say anything about when a building becomes a high-rise, other than that one high-rise district that was created for the HUD project, Oxford Towers. Thank you. So,
Okay, so maybe hopefully in the future you guys pay more attention to what you're describing, because if you describe to me that a high-rise is 50 feet or higher, I'm going to take that.
okay, so, perfect. So now we can agree, I believe, can we agree that this is not a high-rise building?
Can we agree that it's
Right, so-
it's well over, it's 32% higher than what's allowed?
That doesn't
on,
matter. That doesn't matter.
Coolidge?
This is a PUD. You know, I read it to you out of the building code, and that's what you have to refer to. This, by definition, this is not.
I know.
If
a
that's how we want
high-rise.
to define it now, yes.
Well, it's not how we want to define it.
No,
It's
that's
what the
not how you
building code
defined it
says.
before. That's what I was going under. I was going by your information.
I was going, and the crux of that conversation, I remember it, was the roof was occupiable space up at 60-something feet.
You know, but you told him after you, if you said, even if that's not, you said when you come in, you were talking about the remaining part of it. Can you come in below 49 feet? You were talking about after you take off the party area, it was at 53 feet. And he said, if you look at the number of floors, he could come down to 1 foot per floor and get it to below 50. You were not talking about the party area on the top. I can replay that. I watched it 5, 6,
Okay.
7 times.
That was a different
You were
building.
talking about the building itself.
And that's fine.
So-
But what we're talking about, the floor line was below 50 feet now, or 55, which is the real number. And this building, floor line, is at 42-something, 43 feet, if I remember correctly. So we are below that 55-foot, or even 50-foot threshold, even if it was 50 feet. We're below that threshold. So by definition, this is not a high-rise.
You could say that by definition, then it wouldn't be a high rise.
So,
Okay.
let me ask a question, if I may. Can we agree that this is not a high-rise? By definition? Sure, man.
I can agree
Yeah,
with
you asked the question, come on in.
I can
Okay,
agree,
so,
and I
Marty, this is
talked with her
getting a
last
little,
night.
Marty, I have
no,
I have a
minor
point of
one.
order here.
I know, but
We
I-
are getting out of hand. We have a
But
public hearing to hold.
I
and we're not-
understand.
I know
This
what
is
you-
where
your
I'm
point.
going with this.
Okay.
But I
If you
understand
may
what I
indulge
said,
me.
because I
I'm
was
giving
basing
you a
my
very short leash
information
on
off of
this
what
one,
you had
Marty,
said
to get to your
previously,
point.
so.
Ma'am, I'm sorry.
But
Yeah, thank
for
you.
clarifying.
So I just wanted to clarify the rationale from my question from last week.
We can't hear you.
Microphone.
The concern that Annalise, I live on Franklin Road in Berkeley. My concern from last week was whether this was a 6-story, because that then, and with its occupiable floor at 55 feet, that would trip it into a high-rise. What I guess my question is, there isn't a roof plan provided that shows what is going to be within those walls. So one of the disqualifying things are storage, a maintenance office. So do we know for certain what's on the 6th floor or the 6th area of this And I think that's a responsibility of the submittal,
Okay.
is to show that.
That's a fair comment. And what we talked about, the answer was that it is mechanical equipment, was the answer. Now, there is no floor plan, okay, but the answer is mechanical equipment. And the code talks about penthouses shall be considered, and I'm reading again, a portion of the story directly below the roof deck on which the penthouse is located. So therefore, by definition, it's not a six-story building. But that was an excellent question. Your rationale was fine. Okay, thank you. So, let me ask, can we agree it's not a six-story building then? Because it's not. Can we agree it's not a high-rise? Because it's not.
If he submits the paperwork that shows that it's not, then I guess I can agree with that.
Who's he?
Who's he?
Where?
The developer. The plan doesn't,
Well, okay.
have it in there. It doesn't describe what's going to be in there. There's no floor plan for it. So if he does submit that, then I guess we could agree with that.
Okay.
Because you remember, let's just be clear, this paperwork that he submitted has not been clear. And all this stuff that you guys got in front of you was supposed to be finished when he applied for his application. And we got it, what, 3.5 days ago? 2.5 days ago?
So did I.
So let's be fair. We're talking about a building that the details are filling in as the days are inching by, and that shouldn't have been what happened. So I appreciate that.
Okay, so here's what we're going to say. And I'm sorry, Ms. Chairman. I'm sure a lot of people are here tonight, and probably because of this. So if we can nip this in the bud, it's not a high-rise, it's not a six-story building, I think we can save us a lot of time with this discussion. I thank you. Now, we can ask them to provide a plan of what's in that penthouse space. Okay? So, at that point, assuming what he told me last month, or told us, is true, it's mechanical equipment, it's not a six-story, and we already know it's not a high-rise because the top floor is at 43 feet or 44 feet, not 55. So it's neither, okay? So, I have a request. Assuming we get a plan that shows us that there's nothing in that penthouse, would you please remove this from all the websites? Because this is not
Yes, I will.
really a correct
But
statement.
also, I do want to make clear, and I think that everybody that's here to speak tonight will testify to it. Many people here, or a lot of people here that are concerned about this building will testify to it. That I think you're cutting them short by saying that they're only here because they're concerned about a six-story building. I just want to say, they're here because they're concerned about the parking that's lacking in this building. They're here because they're concerned about the traffic, where there was an improper traffic study done. They're here because...
That's later.
I want to tell you, but you made an assumption of why they're here.
Yes, okay.
And I will bet you that every one of them will come and say, they'll say that they are concerned about many of the issues with the
Okay, I'm
building.
ending it for both
And
of
it
you.
has nothing to do with that.
I'm ending
Thank
for both
you.
of you and starting this public
Thank-
hearing. I'm sorry that...
Thank you for your time, Ms. Chairman.
Yes, that was your one gimme.
Well, it's not over yet.
No, it is for you. No. All right, we will start the public hearing. Please proceed orderly. Name, address, 4 minutes. Timekeeper, yes, Mr. Baumgartner.
I do just-
Kurt Height, 3525 Robino.
All right,
I don't want to start this too early. I do want to call attention that I appreciate the fact you've added a minute to our usual time. I do want to call attention to, it's kind of small up there, but we do have a timer in place so that any of the speakers can gauge their timing. I would hate to cut somebody off.
And before you start the timer, this is a public hearing. This is no longer a dialogue or a conversation. We are here to intake your comments. It will not be a back and forth, no matter how much we want to give back and forth and give answers. The public hearing is a one-way valve. It's you to us.
Kurt Height, 3525 Robino. The reason why I'm first here is because originally when Harvard Commons was approved, and after it started being built, people were surprised at the scale of it. When they saw it in reality versus paper, it just was so much bigger and it took up so much area. So I thought the best thing to do regarding this building and about the size of it was to start put together some kind of at least a scale. Now this is Mr. Wheeler's house. This is, it's 25 feet wide, it's like 20-something feet high. And this is Harvard Commons. And this is the scale of that. Now, of course, this is just a house, and these are just condos, but the main thing is most of the buildings in that area are around the same size or fall within that thing. So if you want to pay attention, these are kind of the character of the neighborhood. And I don't have anywhere to put it. I was planning on putting it there, but so I'll put it right there. Now, what I did is I took the 66.8 or 66 foot 8 inch building, and I did it to scale to show you what it looks like in that neighborhood compared to everything else that is scaled down to a much smaller size. And this is what it looks like. Because the bird's eye view doesn't really show it, because it looks like it kind of, the way they do it with the trees and everything, they blend it in. So I just wanted to make sure that we were talking about the scale. Now, last time when we talked, the main reason why I'm here was back in May, June, July. There were a few commissioners that had stated that they still had some major concerns over this project. And if there were not major changes to this PUD, they would ultimately be voting no. There was talk of doing a traffic study, and the PC agreed, but the study was done in July. Many residents had asked for the study to be completed during the school year. We felt that it would be the only way to see the problems that currently exist. But just like many of the other concerns that have been brought up by the residents, this request was also dismissed. The results of the traffic study were presented during the public hearing in August, and as has been predicted by the developer and others supporting them, the influx caused by this apartment would have little impact on the neighborhood streets. Thus, despite the lack of any major developments or major changes, 4 commissioners voted yes. Some of the PC the Planning Commission, because this traffic study was all that they needed to further dismiss any of the remaining concerns as well as those of the residents. The study and the parents' testimony were like black and white, with more weight given to the study than those experienced the major issues crossing Coolidge. I had Berkeley parents telling me that every school day they were experiencing major issues crossing Coolidge, going westbound on Harvard. They were describing it as a nightmare. If there were really cars backed up all the way down the block, as claimed by parents who lived on the block as well as the residents who traveled on it, how could the traffic study be accurate since it mentioned no delays in the present and predicted none for the future? Until recently, I had not had the opportunity to review the information in the traffic study, but I decided that it was finally time to familiarize myself with it. Initially, the first thing I noticed was that the only pertinent data that they could reference was from SimCog for Coolidge 1.5 miles north and 0.25 miles south of Woodward, as well as references regarding 12 Mile and Coolidge. I then noticed the high grades given to each intersection for their levels of service in the present, and even how they were predicted to handle an increase in 2 years in the future during school year at peak AM hours. Even with 41 to 71 additional outgoing trips from the new site and Harvard Commons, they declared that there would be no drop in the high level of service that they had rated these intersections. During the study, they counted 15 cars eastbound and 1444 westbound for peak AM hours. They called this the current count. The next section was called future count. It took their current count and added 5% for school traffic, the 3% growth per year for the next 2 years, and an additional traffic that would be expected to come from Harvard Commons. Eastbound showed a predicted 26 cars, westbound showed 47 for peak AM hours. During the school year, a slight increase in traffic was predicted for that hour, but still not enough to represent the nightmare I'd heard about.
Mr. Height, your time is up. I'm sorry.
Is there anybody that was going to speak that I can have? Can I have your time, please? Can I have her time? Can I speak for Barb Morris, please? No. You know what, you guys, listen.
Kurt, I'm sorry. We have to give everybody an opportunity to speak. And if you want to submit those in writing, we will take them.
The traffic study was 220% inaccurate. So there's no way you can use a traffic study to justify that there will not be any problems in the neighborhood. If you pay attention to the direction of the school flows.
Kurt, we're done. Kurt, I will have you removed. I will. I'm sorry. If you want to provide those comments in writing, we will take them. Submit them into the public comment, and we will take them full in writing. You can email them if you like. That's fine, too.
My name is Barb Morris. I live in Wiltshire in Berkley. I implore you to allow Kurt to speak on my behalf at this moment.
That's not how this works, Ms. Morris, but if you'd like to make additional comments, you may.
All right. I'm upset about the whole process. It seems to me that from what I've seen, the developer has not submitted everything that was required. I'd like to finish his comments about
Fine.
the traffic study. During the study, they counted 15 cars eastbound and 44 going westbound for the peak at AM hours. They called this the current count. The next section was called future count, and it took their current count and added 5% for the school traffic, plus 3% growth per year for the next 2 years, and the additional traffic that would be expected to come from Harvard Commons. The eastbound showed a predicted 26 cars and westbound showed 47 for peak AM hours during the school year. A slight increase in traffic was predicted for that hour, but still not enough to represent the nightmare I had heard about. The last section was future total, background plus site, traffic it included, current count plus future count, and additional influx that would be generated by the new apartment building eastbound showed 44 cars, westbound showed 47. It seemed this nightmare scenario was presented nowhere in the data presented. Despite numerous requests by the concerned residents that a traffic study be done during the school year, there was no additional one done between August and December of 2014. Therefore, it seemed that the only option I would have would be to take some time off and go check out the area myself, and I took the first opportunity when school resumed to go count vehicles that were driving eastbound and westbound on Harvard at Coolidge. I figured this intersection was the best choice since the study showed such low numbers it would be easy to count. I also felt that this would be the road most impacted since so much would be diverted onto this street, combined with the mixture of eastbound traffic and the backup of westbound traffic that the parents had told me about. And Kurt did all this. The increase in traffic started right on the dot at 7 a.m. Several times going eastbound, the cars got as deep as 4 to 5 at the light. At the 23-minute mark, my count going eastbound surpassed the 26 cars shown in future charts during the peak AM hour between 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Westbound traffic flow seemed to be a lot heavier than predicted in the future chart. Many times it was as many as 5 to 6 cars deep. It surpassed 75 cars midway through the hour. That is 28 cars, which is 60% more than the 47 at this intersection of the chart. Of concern was the traffic actually started getting heavier after that point. Eastbound cars seemed to stack up more frequently, but still not deeper than 6 cars. I started seeing the westbound traffic continually reaching 8 to 9 or even 10 cars. Once or twice, westbound traffic actually reached the end of the block. There were many cars I witnessed that dodged right or left after sitting at the stop sign, trying to determine if they would make the Harvard light in timely manner. I did get a visitor for a few moments who took pictures and a video. I was busy counting that. I did not have time to do it myself, or I would have lost count. I wish I had someone there the whole time. I would have loved to have videoed the whole hour.
Ms. Morris, I'm sorry, your time is up.
All right, thank you.
Shirley Hansen, Berkeley resident, and I must say a Berkeley resident for almost 70 years. I've seen a lot of things happen in Berkeley. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you volunteers for setting up here, being faced with this degree of animosity. I would give anything in the world if everybody would take a step back and think about what's best for the future of Berkeley and La Salette, the church. I do not attend La Salette, but I understand that the selling of this property is something that's important to keeping that institution open within our city limits, which means a great deal to a great many residents that are afraid by intimidation to come to this open session and speak, and at least in semi-favor of this, I am going to have to leave the city of Berkeley as a resident because there is not sufficient rental properties. We need this. It's something that has to happen for the future of the city, and I wish everybody would just take a deep breath and stop all of this extreme animosity and realize that there are a lot of Berkeley citizens that are in support of this but hesitate to come because they don't want to face the intimidation. Thank you for your time and your service.
Jim Cox, Oxford and Berkeley. Well, we're not going to agree if this is a high-rise or a tall building. Which is it? Madam Chairperson, twice you said it's a tall building, right? Just in the last local newspaper you read, you said, I know it's a tall building. Now, is that too tall for you to say that or not? But you're in support of it, right? Well, why would you say it if you're not? No. So is it tall or is it a high rise? In my mind, my estimation, it's a high rise. I think we went through this with Mr. Barnett when he was at the chair there. I think we went through that some time ago. It's like being on a jury. If you have a doubt, you got to give it to the defendant. If it's a tall building, you've said this twice, it's a tall building. I know that, but I'm going to vote for it or support it. You know, you're not giving us the benefit of the doubt at all. And in reference to the last lady that was up here, I feel intimidated by the church and by the people, and they have the right to come in here. Absolutely, everybody does. It's our right. I feel intimidated by them coming in here and saying this is about the church. It's not about the church. This is about our residents, Berkeley, which I love more than anything. But this is not about the church. That church, the school closed, attendance is down. I live 2 doors away from it. I see it every Sunday. That's not our fault. Whose ever fault it is, I don't know. But this is not about the church. And we shouldn't have to be intimidated by that. It's been a couple of times before that. We went through this before about peer group pressure and about conflict of interest. If you have doubts, reservations about that building, you've got to give it to the defendant. You've said it twice. It's a tall building. How tall is tall to you or not, I don't know. But if you really get down to it, why put a penthouse up there if you're not going to live in it? If it's livable and somebody can stay there, that's got to be part of the structure. I could go on and on, but give somebody else some time. But please, look at the whole picture. We live there. We're the ones that's got to put up with it 24/7. Thank you.
Before the next person, Mr. McLean, can you remove the props, please, from the board? Thank you. Thank you.
Rob Robinette, Oxford, Berkeley, Michigan. Thanks for removing that because I was going to Godzilla all over that.
Don't make me cough.
As two speakers before me, she stole all my thunder. She's very eloquent. Again, there are citizens of Berkeley, very non-vocal, intimidated citizens that believe in this type of housing. We believe that this is what needs to happen for Berkeley to grow. I'm going to try not to. I'm not going to use all my time, but I grew up in Garden City, Michigan. When I moved here 8 years ago, Berkeley reminded me a lot of Garden City in the 80s and 70s. Garden City has gone, they didn't grow, right? They stayed stagnant, they stayed the same, and it's not a place I would want to live today. What made Berkeley great 30 years ago is different what makes Berkeley great now, or what's going to make Berkeley great 30 years from now. I think we need this. I think we need young professionals living in Berkeley. Anything that brings more people to Berkeley is good for Berkeley. Thank you.
Can I make a request that the audience please respect everybody making comments and minimize the chatter out in the audience, please? Thank you. Please go ahead.
Eric Wheeler, Oxford Road. With no disrespect, I'd like to continue Kurt's comments. He says, at the end, I was surprised that my total count, it was 67 eastbound and 149 going westbound. For the first time, I had that data that represented what the school morning traffic was all about. 67 eastbound cars is 23 cars, or 52% higher than the number of eastbound cars they said the area would not see until 2019. 149 westbound traffic was 102 cars, 217% higher than the 47 westbound cars they predicted would not see until 2019. Both those numbers are far above a 5% increase. I knew that the issue was indeed the school traffic we had heard about in all the stories from the parents. I have no doubt that you could go on any school day through the year and get similar numbers, but a few things in the study showed how they underestimated the impact of the school traffic on these roads. A SEMCOG study suggested traffic was heavier in July and August, but seems to contradict the heavier commutes parents experience at the local level. For this study, their prediction was based on work done by Giffords-Webster, which said that traffic volumes, is quoting, traffic volumes in the morning, commuting peak periods could be on the order of 4 to 5% higher when school is in session than when it is not. So, end quote, so if one uses their common sense along with the parents' testimony and the residents' recent experience, reveals the study's finding was not accurate. Data that covers traffic on the main roads over a mile north of where this development is located does not consider the local traffic going to the schools for drop-offs because those cars never go that far north. There would be no reason for many of these parents to come near 12 miles, so Coolidge and Woodward is a whole world away from the information we needed most. The only way you could have taken the school traffic was to actually have someone count this traffic on various school days, which is what many of us have asked for repeatedly, more times than I have reminded you tonight. So I'm going to depart for a moment and just give my own comments, which is that, you know, our experiences, our observations do count for something, I hope. You know, we live in the midst of it, we experience this, and what people speak of in terms of the intimidation and everything has been, well, you know, I've been the subject of some of that, the derisive comments, a set of derisive comments from one person. And so there are people who observe that kind of thing and don't speak out if they're against this, because they don't feel that they're listened to, they don't feel that they're heeded, taken seriously. So I'm hoping that we really are considered, that, you know, our voice counts for something. The last thing I'll say is that, you know, I work in downtown Detroit. I see a tremendous amount of development there, and one of the mindsets, the presences that exists, is that I think the school, as it is, I'm not saying that it has to stay, but as it is, you would find a number of people who would really enjoy living in a converted older building like that. People have such a reverence for that kind of thing, so don't discount that.
Thank you. Next.
Charles Terrell from Berkeley. couple of little things. First off, the online version of the architect's plans did not show an architect's seal. So I don't know if that was just the plans and putting them online, if the seal just didn't show. Are the plans sealed? Secondly, what we've been told time and again is one of the factors for having a PUD is that it is a contract with the developer. The developer is an LLC, limited liability. So remedies in court, as the city manager has spoken of, in order to make sure that everything the developer says they're going to do, their liability is limited. If this is truly going to be a contract and we're going to hold them to it, I say that they need to step out from behind their limits of liability, take personal liability for everything. You can easily bankrupt an LLC, void out the contracts, if you will, of an LLC. It's a simple thing to do, and that's a way to get around any kind of enforcement. Something that it's been touched upon, never really addressed in any kind of detail, is wastewater. There is going to be a whole lot more wastewater generated by this complex than could have ever been envisioned by elementary students. There's never been any kind of real discussion, any showings how wastewater is going to be handled, not just there, but downstream. Since things really got kicked off, since I've been coming to these meetings to talk about this, kind of been keeping track. One of the meetings we had a little scorecard of the 7 criteria for a PUD, and I'll just be succinct. This project does not meet the criteria for a PUD.
Patty Curtis, I live in Berkeley. With regard to intimidation, what the lady a few ahead of me said, there were 2 Planning Commission members who were removed for ethics violations specifically related to ridiculing or demeaning residents. So want to talk, and that would be people who they ridiculed, demeaned, insulted, and violated their own ethics code to people who were opposed to this development. For the record, 2 were removed. 1, still sitting on this commission, was compelled to take a demotion from chair. Want to talk about intimidation? There's your intimidation right there. The church is responsible for its own viability, not the neighbors. I don't feel this is a very neighborly development. I'm ashamed of my parish of 33 years. I'm ashamed. And with regard to the definition of a high-rise, you could find nothing in the code that referred to... Right. In the Municode of Berkeley, section 138.358, under zoning, high-rise multiple-family residential dwellings of 3 stories or more. And it goes on to say some restrictions.
Okay.
So the code is not silent on the definition of a high-rise. It can be inferred from that, and I think it would stand up that a high-rise would be 3 stories or more. Section 138.358 for the record, if you want to take a look at that. Development as proposed, this hearing is to vote on that, to vote on whether or not to recommend it to City Council as proposed. As I read it, and I admit I'm not an architect, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a developer. There are a lot of things missing, a lot of things that have not been addressed, a lot of things in the application process that were either missing, sloppy, ignored, things that were brought up at the last session that were required, the work session, you need to bring this, 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 and this, and none of those things have been provided. I don't think this development is ready to be voted on. I don't think this PUD is ready in its current state. Furthermore, I think the city has spent an inordinate amount of time for the one application fee. I'm aware that some employees have worked on this at home. After hours, the developer has not been charged for that. They've submitted several different sets of plans, all of them needing a complete re-review. I don't think it's appropriate that these additional incurred costs have not been charged forward to the developer. For a lot of reasons, that's why I don't think you should recommend that this go forward to City Council. I think it should be denied in its current state and let them get their act together and come back. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Paul Jordan, and I'm a resident of beautiful, bodacious Berkeley. I want to say welcome to the new faces. Lisa, I was really excited to see you got your appointment. I think it's a good thing. Most of the time, I watch these meetings from the relative comfort of my own home. However, since it's getting to the point where the rubber's going to meet the road, I felt it necessary to come up and make a few comments regarding this PUD. Forgive me if I do a little bit of time travel here, going back into September. A comment was made some time ago that the developer has expended a significant amount of time and resources on this project. And while that's probably true, that's the cost of doing business and shouldn't factor into your decisions. One of the discussions that took place was in regards to having some retail included in both the project as it exists now and the prior proposal. It was determined by the developer to be cost prohibitive because that would involve a significant retrofitting of the school. Now, since the school is no longer part of the project, that argument no longer is valid, and it again shouldn't have been any part of your decision-making process, because that's a business decision. That's the cost of doing the development. The developer also stated that they didn't want to build any retail space because they didn't want to compete with existing property owners. Now, if you use the non-competitive argument as a reason to scrap a potential benefit of this PUD, then this entire project should be scrapped, because this development is within walking distance of 3 different apartment complexes, 2 of which it'll be within eyesight of. Now, they could sell it as condominium. Oh, nope, sorry, Harvard Commons, existing business. No selling condominiums there. There was also a parking argument against making this a true mixed-use development. But this is a PUD proposal, right? Which means there should be some wiggle room. Hey, folks, you come to us with some first-floor retail in a smaller apartment building, and by gosh, we're going to work with you on that parking agreement. That's what a PUD's supposed to be. It's supposed to be give and take. As long as it benefits the community, the developer should be allowed to operate within somewhat more relaxed boundaries. At the last meeting, water runoff and flood control was briefly discussed. It was stated that the developer will have to build a system sufficiently large enough to hold all the runoff from the property and slowly release it into the existing system. When a citizen asked if it would be possible to have them build a system large enough to absorb some of the existing community runoff, the response was that it wouldn't be fair, and so we can't do that. Well, to quote our last sane, super smart president, yes, we can, because it's a benefit to the community. Yes, we can demand that they put in more public green space. Yes, we can say we want fewer apartments and retail to be included. Yes, we can say that we want to ensure that that a piece of fire equipment that we know we're buying is going to be able to fit into every piece of the parking lot. Yes, we can say that we want traffic to enter and exit onto Coolidge only. Now, you folks have had this has been going on for close to a year that I can think of. And over and over and over again, there have been people up here from the community that are pointing out where there are some shortcomings, where we can make some corrections, and how they oppose this.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
We are Berkeley. Vote no.
Joshua Hunter, resident here in Berkeley. Madam Chairman, I wrote a letter to the Planning Commission regarding discussion of the conventional zoning codes versus the PUD, so the benefits or limitations could be compared. So I hope that's discussed later in this meeting. One recurring theme we've heard the past several months is how the viability of the project relies on the number of units, the intensity of the site. So I think if the applicant is making financial viability an issue, they should be able to provide an analysis to demonstrate how different site plans would not be financially viable. Why is a 134-unit apartment viable but not a 114-unit apartment? Why would a site entirely of townhouses not be viable? Why would a mixed-use development not work? And one of the PUD requirements is a narrative report prepared by the applicant to accompany the site plan, and there's 9 different criteria that need to be included in that report, but I did not see that in the packet. It seems like there's a lot of information missing. And one of those is how the site meets the 7 standards for approval. I think we need to have a report on how the applicant sees how they meet all 7 standards for approval from the PUD ordinance. They did mention that they did an extensive market needs analysis, but I have not seen that report for review. In previous meetings, I requested to see some comparable properties over these past few meetings, but I have not seen any examples. So how do we know these PUD deviations satisfy the market without this information? They also have not made the changes requested per the fire inspector, as was mentioned previously. The applicant also removed the sedum roof, which was supposed to be part of the landscaping benefit from the pre-application meeting. I recall Commissioner Richardson requesting to see the applicant's analysis to support the assertion that the new design is superior to the sedum roof in regards to drainage, but I did not see this analysis in the meeting packet. Also, why was there no school year specific traffic study that was requested? These aren't overreaching requests because the applicant is deviating drastically from standard code, and any number of different reports can be requested from the applicant before proceeding to council for approval. I think that's the best way to get an accurate view of how well these deviations fit the community. I think there is a market gap between the standard multiple family ordinance and the high-rise ordinance, but that's an argument the applicant needs to present with their market needs analysis, comparables, and the project's financials. I personally think it'd be appropriate for the PUD to fill that gap with the height matching the Coolidge District requirements of 40 feet and having all ingress and egress on Coolidge. Overall, though, I think the applicant has been given a number of chances and plenty of time to provide the required information and design changes. We're already at the point of public hearing, and we still lack sufficient information required by the PUD code. The lack of required information, it's kind of insulting to me. I hope this commission votes to recommend denial to council so we can move on to more pressing matters. And in the future, I believe the document requirements from the code should be very clear at the pre-application meeting. And lastly, in the ordinance, nearby property owners are able to protest any new zoning amendment, which can only be overridden by a 3/4 council vote. I think it would be helpful for the community development director to explain how that process works so property owners can follow through if they choose. Thank you.
Chris Riley, Oxford Road, Berkeley, Michigan. I want to echo all the concerns that everybody has been brought up here today: the parking, the traffic, the they didn't say noise, but we can add noise for 200 car, alarms being set, whether they're running. Those are going to be outdoor cars. They're going to be running for 10 minutes at a time. People are going to use their automatic starts. So poor Eric's going to have to listen to cars and see headlights in his window at all hours of the night and day, especially since the developer assures us that 1/3 of these people are going to be hospital workers. They work 24/7. They don't take a day off. They work midnights. They work 3 in the morning. So these noises are going to be occurring in our neighborhood at all hours of the day, not just during normal business hours. So we're going to be running into traffic, hearing traffic and noise all hours of the day. The one biggest concern I have with this project is the fact that it doesn't qualify as a PUD. There are 7 requirements for a PUD. This barely meets 4 of them, let alone all 7. So I insist that all the discussion tonight from you at the end before you vote is that all 7 requirements are touched upon before you make any vote whatsoever, because this should be denied 100%. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Wodyka. I'm a Birmingham resident. I am also a business person and property owner here in the Berkley area. I wanted to come out this evening and speak in favor of this project from a different voice than you may have been hearing from. I've been a business person here in Berkeley and the greater Huntington Woods area for going on 26 years in April. I own 11 pieces of property in Berkeley. We own the 3 blocks of real estate between this project and Coolidge, full city blocks, 3.5 city blocks. All of our properties are full. We have no vacancies. We have operated as a good corporate citizen here. We've built new projects. We've remodeled projects. And we'll continue to invest in Berkeley as time goes on. I am also a former chairman of the Greater Berkeley Chamber of Commerce. Was partially responsible in '96 for the funding. Our group was partially responsible for funding, or 100% responsible for funding the renovation of the Marquee in downtown Berkeley during the Dream Cruise, and funded Berkeley's portion of the Dream Cruise costs for police and fire protection and cleanup in those years as chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. I currently sit on the DDA board as well, and the point in telling you that is that I have a genuine concern and respect for the city of Berkeley, and have demonstrated that with my time, my money, and my efforts. I think the developers should be applauded for this project, for the amount of time and energy they've put into it. I think they see this as a very viable project, or they wouldn't continue to spend the time pursuing it. I think that the city of Berkeley needs to get ready for more projects of this scale to be presented to it. And obviously, all of you as planning commissioners and as residents are tasked with doing a thoughtful, thorough job and a very responsible job of reviewing these projects and then either approving them or denying them based on the merit of the project and the highest and best use of the real estate being suggested for the projects. The project is good for the residents, and you have a very strong vocal group against the project. But this project will increase property values. It will add tax dollars to the city coffers, where there's a large piece of property now that generates 0 tax dollars. It's exempt as a church. This will be good for the business community, for the retail businesses, the offices in the area that stand to benefit from increased traffic of this caliber of a clientele. We currently have a significant amount of vacancy in the area, in the retail storefronts, that I believe would have greater demand should a project like this be approved and brought into development. I also think it's good for the church. Obviously, the school, I happen to sit as a trustee of a local Catholic school, and we are experiencing, like all Catholic schools in the area, a shrinking demand, and it's not uncommon what has happened at La Salette. That has happened and will continue to happen with other Catholic schools throughout the area. There's a constriction and there's an oversupply. So this sort of project will continue to happen. It happened in St. Bede's, in Southfield at 12 and Southfield Road. Very fine project came out of that and will continue to happen throughout the area. So I speak with confidence that it's a good project for Berkley. I also know that once the project's approved, the residents will not have to worry about sewage issues and traffic issues because zoning codes and building BOMA codes will require that the builder stay within compliance and builds a thoughtful project that fits local, state ordinances. So thank you for your time and good luck with this project.
Anybody else? Next one.
Hi, Linda Gable-Smith, Berkeley resident. Just going to reiterate some comments I made at a meeting earlier in the spring. Remember, just because you read something or hear something, that sometimes they're not true. Facts aren't always checked for accuracy. People interpret things differently. Groups of people need to quit using the word "we" as if you're speaking for all of Berkeley, because you haven't. If you haven't spoken to each resident, you are not speaking for all of Berkeley. I support this project immensely. The city of Berkeley is not bailing out La Salette if they approve this project. This is a real estate transaction between La Salette and the Berkeley Coolidge LLC that requires the site plan approval before it can commence the real estate sale. If this proposal is not approved, what will be the next purchase offer if there is one? A strip mall? More, if you put retail in there, you're going to have even more traffic than if you have apartments. You'll also have delivery trucks, 3 in the morning, who knows? So I think retail in that spot will be worse for the neighborhood than apartment dwellers. I also know that many people who are in the city of Berkeley right now in their houses that they can no longer keep up, they will leave the city of Berkeley if they have no place to go. And right now there's no place for them to go. If people leave this community to live somewhere else, they'll be gone for good. They won't come back. It's a proven fact. You don't have time. You don't have the energy. You won't come back. We will lose many residents who are aging out of their homes if we do not have some place to go. And I know many people who are very interested in moving into these apartments. Also, it will attract young single people who can't afford to buy a house right now. They'll come in, maybe they'll get married, maybe they'll buy a house. It's a wonderful place for people to start living in the community of Berkeley that we all love. Thank you.
One more coming.
Good evening, all.
Your name?
My name is David King. I live at Prairie and Webster. And really, I just share my own experience. Every morning for me, I drop my kids off at Rogers Elementary, and I'm cutting it really close to get my other one to Anderson, and cutting it close again to make it to work on time. And I think that area at Coolidge and Harvard is kind of, there's no good detours. So that's just my own thing. I love going to Durst. If that's clogged up with other traffic, I might have to go somewhere else, and I don't want to. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any more comments? Okay, I officially close the public hearing. Wait, oh, sorry. Okay. All right, one more.
From the Peanut Gallery. So my name is Annalise. I live on Franklin Road. I just wanted to add that I have similar concerns with the traffic study being to a degree incomplete and not addressed, that the easement is not included, a cross easement, as Howell Rothbard describes, is not included. The front circular drive is not part of the traffic study. I think that's a big concern. There's not a no left turns sign out of that Front Circle Drive, which I think is also going to be a traffic conundrum. There isn't a loading space provided, which in apartments, the turnover rate is about 52%, which would mean you'd have one and a quarter people moving out every weekend. So if you don't provide that space, I think it's going to also be a problem. The bus stop, it doesn't definitively say it's going to be moved. That's also an issue as to how close it is to the building. So this gets to the pedestrian path. The pedestrian path throughout the site is incomplete. If you go down the far stairs, you don't have a sidewalk that takes you to the public way, which is required as a means of egress for fire. This is a very big issue. As a PUD where you make your own rules, if that's not on the paper, I think that's a bit troubling. So I think that they could do a better job at addressing the pedestrians. But these really are little things. I think the big thing is that I've been hearing from Planning Commission say is that they want the right project. Well, it means the right project at the right size, done the right way. We all want multifamily. We want to be able to age into a building. But will we be able to afford this? Like, the rents, the construction budget really hasn't been definitively addressed. And to get people's hopes up that this is where they could move into, but it turns out is going to be $2,200 a month, and they may have to pay extra for parking. I mean, these are answers we just don't know. And what is the developer's background? How successful have they been at a podium building with 4 stories? You know, past performance is a predictor of future success. And that's what a right-size project is, a successful one that doesn't go bankrupt during construction. How do we know, how financially stable these companies are? These are all really important questions when you're asking to go above and beyond all of the zoning rules and regulations. So the other thing I'd like to add is that for multifamily, the building code really doesn't address large buildings. Sound control, it's a bare minimum in the building code. So the owners could really provide additional of that. Accessibility, 2% would mean 4 accessible units of type A. If you really think this is going to be for a third seniors, you got to up your game. So I really think this could be a smaller scale. And if it's successful, go for a 5-story building after. People will be knocking your doors down to get in. But let's start a little bit smaller. Thanks.
Is there anybody else out in the hallway that wants to speak? Okay, so now I close the public hearing. Okay, there's some seats inside if anybody in the hallway wants to come in. Okay. What time is it? Not bad. All right, so our next item on the agenda is the Planned Unit Development PUD 0117 Berkley Coolidge LLC, 2219 Coolidge Highway, southwest corner of Coolidge and Oxford, tax ID 2518, 431-015-016-017, and a portion of 022, lots 13 through 15, and 52 through 53 of the Denler Acre subdivision is requesting Planned Unit Development approval for a mixed residential development. I know the petitioner is here, and before he starts, Mr. Parabello, I would like to say something. And I would like the audience to respect that I'm speaking now. I stayed silent for everyone. Our packet that we have, and there were some comments that were made, and they were not incorrect, that the site plan provided to us is incomplete at this time. And I know that there has been some modifications made between the time that the packet was delivered to the city and this meeting. But we have not seen them. I know we may see them now. That does not give us adequate time to review those elements. And it is required in the ordinance. It is clear. I want to talk about one other thing. People on several occasions mentioned, or at least a couple of occasions mentioned, the 7 elements of a PUD, and it has to demonstrate at least that 3 of them, that has the potential to meet them, or to demonstrate that it can be attained under 3 of these elements. Or, I'm not saying that correctly, I'm sorry, but
Minimum of 3.
a minimum of 3 of the 7 is required. And we did find in our initial finding that it did meet, I think, 4. There was some question about which one the 4 was. There was a difference of opinion, but I think we all agreed that 3 were met.
Madam Chair, just for clarification, the 3 out of 7 pertains to one of the 7 general approval standards in the ordinance. The community benefit.
The recognizable benefit.
The recognizable
Yep.
benefit is that's one element.
Right.
For which 3 out of 7 need to be found.
Right.
So
That's what I think
I'm
they were
just
referring
trying
to.
to clarify that.
Yep, absolutely. And that's section 138533 of the code. If anybody wants to pull that up on their smartphone while they're here, you can find it very quickly. So the first thing we did in this process, well, we're kind of on our second go-round, is we went through the recognizable benefit, we went through the pre-application conference, and it had, we agreed that that the PUD proposal had merit and it had the potential. We're now at the application for site plan review. We've had our public hearing, and it requires that they submit a site plan and all other necessary documents that meet the requirements of our site plan review. There are elements missing. So we can discuss these matters, but there are a lot of elements missing, and the public is not wrong in that matter. And I know that you did meet with staff today. I don't know that all of them have been filled in since that time, and certainly we've not seen them. And I'm, my personal feelings aside of whether or not we approve or disapprove or like this project, the technical elements need to stand before we can even vote. So the only choices we have, in my opinion, and my fellow commissioners can chime in, and we will take questions and we will have a dialogue, but we can postpone, or we could go ahead and vote and deny, but we cannot approve because there are too many elements missing in this site plan that has been presented to us. There are technical elements clearly spelled out, guys, and I get that you've been working hard. That should not factor into it, as I'm told, but and you should meet them. Other people have met them in previous PUDs, and it's trying my patience a little bit that we're up here yet again, and this is not ready. I think Matt is had the brunt of that. Tim had the brunt of that already for me. But this is not ready, and I suspect there will be additional details in here. I don't know how we're going to make up for the lack that's in here. So.
My question is, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Barnett.
Having the fact that there are changes, and none of us have had to review them, I at this point don't know why we would even bother to look at it until they've got everything together and bring it all back forward to us so that we have time to digest it on an individual basis.
Why is everybody looking at me?
Well, no.
Because you're the
just
guru,
looking
the
because,
sage.
Well,
I'm just...
I'm not sure you're allowed to speak again.
To me, at this point, I have some issues. And from what I understand, there's been changes made. I was not at the last meeting, so my recommendation at this point would be to postpone this and have them bring it back at the regular meeting where we can sit down and look at and have an opportunity, hopefully, to review this.
Yeah, so that's exactly my point. My point is, this isn't a matter of whether I like or dislike any elements qualitatively on this project. This is nothing to do with this. This is purely a technical argument. Does the application meet the standard that has been laid out in the ordinance by whoever wrote this ordinance, which I'm not sure who it was, but does it meet the rules that I have in front of me? I mean, in my job every day, I work with regulations every day. That's what I do, and I'm kind of a stickler on that. And this, I'm sorry, guys, it just doesn't do it. So we are happy to have a brief discussion. Brief, and when I say brief, I mean brief. I'm not sure I can say brief again, but it is futile for us, because if you want us to take a vote, frankly, our only vote can be denial. We cannot, in good conscience, and I am speaking on behalf of my commissioners, and if anyone wants to override me on this, I encourage you to raise your hand and go for it. But this application does not meet the standard, period. And until it does, we cannot entertain it.
May I speak?
You may speak.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, I can't minimize some of the things that you're saying. There were a few things that did not make it into the plans. There were problems. I'm not going to elaborate further on holidays and staffing and trying to get everything together. Yes, we were working our butts off. We delayed any kind of enjoyment of holidays. That's irregardless. Were there items that we were able to replace? Yes. Did we meet the items that you've asked for? I believe we have. It's been a difficult process. There's no question whatsoever. Everybody has worked hard for the last year and a half on our part to try to put together a wonderful plan. This is something we want to be able to create that is going to stand the test of time for this, not just the community, but for the residents. And we've taken great care in trying to analyze every element, and we think we put a lot of detail into it. And frankly, I'm finding that the best way to be able to try to get to the next steps are through communication, which has been very difficult. We had one work session that was, I felt, so productive. So productive because we were able to sit there, roll up our sleeves, get to work together. And it just, we haven't had those opportunities. And
Okay, and I want to interrupt you for a moment here. So I want to make it clear, this is not about the qualitative or merits or concept of the plan, whether or not it has 4 floors or this parking agreement or this much green space or that much green space. There are issues out there in the audience that people have with that, and there may be issues up here in this board that people have with it. They don't like this or they don't like that. That's not what this is about.
Understand.
This is
about
purely
procedure.
about procedure.
Yes.
This is not meeting the standards that Berkeley has set forth on the procedural aspect of a site plan review. Okay? And I'm not, if this was one thing, like the previous applicant, it was an issue of a parking spot and a dumpster enclosure. If we were just talking about those one things, and if we go back to the Harvard Commons PUD, there was a couple of little things. I mean, we did have some go-arounds with them, but it came down to a few minor things that we approved with a few minor conditions and tweakings. This is something, there are structural issues with this application. There are major elements missing that are clearly spelled out, and I encourage you to merely, pull it right off the website, take it, build a spreadsheet, which is my favorite thing to do, and make a little checkbox next to every item and identify how you've demonstrated compliance with the item. This is a simple task. You guys are technical enough, or at least your architect is technical enough to accommodate that, or he's got probably
like
some,
this,
he's got
with a
probably some young
multitask
thing to go
of-
do this for you.
Yes. No debate. There's no, what I'm trying to appeal to you about is that I think we have an opportunity to at least work on some of the elements today that, no denying, we missed getting those in on a timely basis. However, I also have to say, we were led to believe that some of these things were already accepted, we're past them, we don't need it, that they were waived. And we did not get notice of that until Friday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, evening even.
Fair
And-
enough, fair enough on your view. I appreciate that.
So-
So that being said, water under the bridge on that matter, because I have nothing to do with that, I'm
It's
not
not a
engineering
matter
and
of
I don't
pointing-
take it in, I merely get the package. But the package is incomplete.
Understood.
The package, I personally can't do anything with this. Certainly, I can get overridden by any of our commissioners here that wish to move forward with it, and I can take a quick poll around the board to see if anybody feels that this package is complete and could move forward with it. Do I have anybody who feels that way? Okay, with that being said, we do have comments, and we'll keep them brief and move forward. You know, these might be qualitative in nature, they might be procedural in nature, I'm not sure what they are, but we will start. So,
Excuse me, is there, if there's a list of missing items, it's not been shared with me. Is that list been shared with the applicant?
I just went through and made my own. I went
Okay.
through just by checking off things using the ordinance.
We have
Are
to
you
be on the
referring to
same
the
page.
19 items in our ordinance?
I'm talking about the 19, well, there's more than 19 items. There's 19
Yeah.
items in
Required information?
the required information.
They
I had
have,
fun with a highlighter today.
They have that.
The required information. No, not all 19 items are actually addressed. Nope, there's some missing data there. And then there are things in the application and the narrative report that are missing. And these were actually brought up in our very sharp public who brought up some of these in the comment. These are items that are missing, and we've not seen them. And I appreciate that there has been some disconnect with the city, and I don't lay it at anyone's feet. It's been a little bit of a transition year for Berkeley.
Understood.
We have a new city manager. We have a new now community development. So we had some gaps in there. They are doing their best to come up to speed. And I mean, and their first priority, of course, is keeping the city running with the day-to-day needs of the city residents and this PUD, and it has sucked up a lot of time, and I do hope that the ordinance allows for the city council to set whatever fee they want so that they can collect back all this money, so I do hope that they're gonna set a fee that does collect back.
Madam Chair, right now, we're just talking about your analysis.
That was my analysis, but I think it was also the city's analysis, because they had a meeting today
Okay.
where there was issues and there was some communication back and forth.
Well, I think, going into the next meeting, speaking for my own part, I would like to be assured via the report that we get from the plan developer that the application is or is not administratively complete
Yep.
by the time of the next meeting.
Absolutely.
It'd be great to see a checklist.
Yep, and I've asked for that, for the next one.
Yeah.
I've asked for that. So we have missed that from Ms. Vanson. She used to,
Right.
and realizing she used to prepare a very complete package with that, very detailed package. So we have been missing that. That's, again, with that, we will entertain a brief presentation of the changes in the project since the last presentation. The changes only, please, highlighted. And we'll go around the table and see what some comments are. And we don't need a motion for this. We're having a discussion. We don't need a motion at the moment. Nothing's being voted on.
Would somebody mind turning down just one light? They don't put-
Some of those lights.
Oh, we need to turn on the lights, sorry. There we go.
Thank you.
That's better.
We're going to just try to run through I think perhaps the best thing to do is just run through the package as quickly as we can and taking in the items that have been mentioned in the past, from the last meeting, from this commission, from the residents, other things that we've tried to improve upon, so that hopefully at least we can show you what we have done from those comments and try to keep improving upon the project. If we can turn to the site plan, Joe, please. I want to draw your attention to the far western curb cut along Oxford Street. And, no, on Oxford, up at the top and west. There you go. And there was some concerns that there may not be good access for any fire trucks or other emergency vehicles to be able to get through that turn. I have discussed that with the chief of, with the head of the Department of Public Safety, and in a nutshell, his words were, there are no issues with the ingress and egress of access to the project.
The International Fire Code then, and it does now.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we make quick comments?
Yes, you may. This
I
can be a
thought his
dialogue.
comment was the southwest corner at the condos, the radius there,
Yeah.
not the northwest, the southwest.
That's
International
yeah.
Okay,
Cor-
that's fine.
yeah.
Because you're referring to
Corey's-
the
Corey's
ingress.
comments were, we have no problem whatsoever. And again, we're not trying to shirk anything.
No, that's
Health
fine.
and safety is first, and
Well, they were
Yes.
talking about the city's in negotiating for a new fire truck.
we understand.
It's going to be a
and
larger fire truck.
I'm sorry, and I did ask specifically, and relative to the new truck that you're getting, will you provide us the specifications? And he didn't have the specifications, so we ran him with a semi-truck,
This exceeds the international standard.
Yes.
Exceeds, biggest thing made.
So
I just want to assure that we are not neglecting any of that.
so
Please.
the new truck that they're acquiring is going to be able to get full access around the buildings
That's
on
correct.
this site.
Is Mr. P. Kelly, sorry, is Mr. P. Kelly happy with the radiuses you now have?
Seemingly, there were no objections. It was, we have no problem.
They haven't reviewed it probably yet.
No, I have a letter dated January 4th in your packet. Fire is again adequate for fire, but not for the new aerial. It's again in the January 4th letter.
Yeah, that's what I read.
Well, that's not what I was told. And I'm sorry, there is this disconnect, and we will, and I've asked for these reports.
Joe,
I
you can
haven't
have my
received them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have tried to head off these issues. I've tried to ask about equipment in advance. I think we have been trying to be diligent, and there are some disconnects, and I'd like to just keep proceeding. There was concern about,
Hang on one sec, I got a question too about the fire equipment. With the planned pork chop approaches,
Yes.
can the fire equipment maneuver those?
very simply, they go over them. They aren't that high. For fire truck vehicles of that nature, that's what they're made for. That's why these are called crash gates,
Okay.
things of that nature.
But the
Again,
sign in
not
the
to
porch.
minimize any of it. Health and safety is a chief concern. It always will be.
What about the sign in the little median on this? Yeah.
No left turn and the amount of access that's in there?
Monument sign.
The monument sign. Isn't there a monument sign in
No,
there?
monument sign is in the center.
We had one there for wayfaring to continue to encourage all traffic to go in and out here.
Okay,
Yes.
but that's not the monument
No,
sign.
no, monument sign is in this.
Oh,
excuse me,
okay,
John.
sorry. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah,
Well, it
it's
says
in the center
monument-
circle.
Monument
Yeah.
sign,
It calls
both
out monument
locations.
sign.
Both locations.
Okay.
So for the next, whenever this comes back to us,
Yes.
if Matt or Tim, we could get them the specifications for whatever the new truck is, and you guys could include a sheet with the truck turning templates right on the sheet so that we can all see.
Just-
But with the new truck specifications, so that we can all see that it can circulate around this site.
We are, just for some context, we are down to three competing models that we're evaluating for purchase. And so we will have them take the largest of the three and model it after that.
And again, we have no problem with that.
Pete Kelly's issue primarily is with the tree height, about being able to get the height of the new vehicle, all access throughout the entirety of the development. That is his concern more so than the turning radius, but we can show, again, we'll show worst case, and everything else past that will be easier.
Yeah,
So-
he's in the courtyard, right?
Was that was in the courtyard?
With regard to the trees in the courtyard, what kind of trees were you contemplating then? I mean, maybe we could,
Yeah, there's a myriad of different trees. They are not going to be high in there,
Okay.
too high for any kind of an access, and there will also always be a crash a fall area that, that they consider, and it will not limit their access.
Okay.
Yeah, again, this is a chief concern of ours.
Regarding the courtyard,
Joe, please.
I did not have any conversations with Pete Kelly. And I know his concern was the trees. Does he plan on bringing a vehicle inside that courtyard? Was that and going north and south with the ladder or the access or whatever? Because then that side, I'm just saying, if that was his plan, I don't know if it is, then that sidewalk there would have to be constructed to support a vehicle of that, the fire truck vehicle. I'm just asking. I don't know if that was his plan.
That would, yes, I think that is the scenario that Pete was evaluating in his review. I know we've also spoke with Lieutenant Miller and Chief Kane on how they would stage a fire with the new apparatus as well. So, and I believe they've met with the applicant on that and have expressed little to no concern.
Did they say they're going
around.
to pull the building into, the truck into the courtyard?
No, they didn't say they would pull a truck, but we would talk about where we're going to place the hydrants.
Okay.
And their ladder will be able to extend out. and
So they have
that's-
no intention of pulling the truck into the court? I'm just asking because I don't know.
Not that I know of at this point.
Okay, I'm just saying, if they are,
If they
that's
are-
got to be built, that sidewalk has to be built accordingly to support that vehicle. If they are, I don't know if they are.
Okay.
But just something to talk about. Yep.
There was some concern about some of the, and yes, some of the dimensions were not as legible and dark as we had hoped for. We have transposed a Alta survey over this drawing. It should be much more clear to read now. I hope that you're finding it the same way.
So we're going to be able to see the dimensions to the street and everything else that's in there?
I'm sorry,
Because I
excuse-
can't
I'm
read
sorry, Dave, I
anything right
couldn't
now.
hear
We're going to see in the new drawings dimensions so we can
There-
assess
Yes.
the setbacks to this Oxford Street, because I have a big concern at
Yes.
that job.
They're actually on this drawing here. We don't need to go through them, I don't believe, at this
Well,
point. It's a
no,
matter
I
of-
don't.
The problem is they're very hard for us to
They're
read.
hard to
Oh,
read. I need a drawing that we can read.
Well,
We'll need that
again,
in large scale,
Yeah,
not just
we-
11 by 17.
Yeah, we'll
I
give
actually-
you,
For me to read it, I actually went to the link on the city's website and blew the PDF.
we did provide 24 by 36 inch drawings as well. We were told that the commission would prefer to have the smaller packages. Again,
For most of those,
we are trying to communicate what is convenient for you.
Well, since we're talking about dimensions, let me just point them out. I mean, there's a lot of dimensions missing, Joe.
Okay.
And we have this dimension, we don't have this dimension.
Right.
Now,
It's 10 feet.
No.
now.
Well, not on my drawing, okay?
Yeah, that's.
There's, and let me, there's no we have this dimension, we don't have this dimension, we have it overall here, maybe now, we don't know how wide this is. And again, bing, 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 you have some here, it's jointed, bing, 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 all the way across. There's no dimensions across here where everything is. We don't know what this drive is, we don't know what that drive is. So there's missing strings all over the place. And
We will ensure that you have a greater amount of dimensions. It does start to look a little muddied, and
oh, yeah.
It's a big
At
site.
this scale,
Break
yeah.
it up in pieces, break it up with the
Or
building.
give us a larger
break it up in
sheet
the
for this
township,
one.
yeah,
We'll
for
give you
this
larger
particular one.
sheets.
Plan will be full scale.
Yeah.
Not full scale,
Fair
we
enough.
wouldn't be able to
Please
handle it.
No, don't need that.
But just, I do what
Bigger
you do.
plastic bag.
We like to see a string end to end, and that's why I've been calling for a civil drawing, simple, but dimensioned.
Right.
And, well, the Alta is existing. I want to know with the new stuff, the Alta doesn't show us what you're doing, it's just existing.
That's right.
But I want to see what your dimensions are, bam, 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 all the way across the site. They're disjointed, there's missing, there's gaps, so
we'll
that's
take
what I
care of
want to
that,
see. Yeah, okay.
No problem.
That's what I'm looking for.
There was some concern relative to the trash receptacles, the placement of them, and the enclosure. This will be a fully enclosed masonry, enclosure. the size of the receptacles, we don't have that number yet. We will have a number once we work further with our property management company, make some projections relative to the amount of waste and how often we have to pick up. And that will be a flowing issue until we get that, but our intent is not to have it piling in any manner. However, we have taken the plan itself, and so to the ease of the access to the receptacle, there is a door well through the podium that will be able to conveniently allow for people to dump their trash. We also may end up having trash chutes or a trash room. There are several ways we're going to be going about it.
Oh, okay, that's been changed too. Okay.
Okay. The electrical transformers at this point will be installed east of the receptacles. We'll have bollards to protect from any kind of incidents that might affect those transformers. We also have an alternative position within the podium deck itself that we may use in lieu of that.
Okay, I'm not sure I caught that. You're going to put you're proposing the transformers so it's going to eat into the green space area, or the
Actually,
park.
Behind it.
Underneath, and
Yeah.
it's right behind it, we'll put right behind the dumpster enclosure.
Okay.
Will you have a generator? Do you plan on a generator?
As far as the generator may be necessary for elevators, and we will probably, more than likely, will be installing one generator.
Okay. Do you know where that's going?
That will probably be down on the podium.
Going to be gas fired or going to be diesel?
No, this will be
Gas?
Natural
yeah,
gas.
natural.
probably.
Thank you.
Okay. And again, and if I have to speak about ventilation within, this will be a fully ventilated facility. There will be free flow air that's going to be coming through the podium deck. So there is no buildup of carbon monoxide or the case of, in this case, natural gas or things of that nature.
Course versus diesel.
Down at the bottom, Joe, could you go back to the first site plan, please? Down at the bottom left, there is a new curb cut. There was some discussion the last time about accessing and more readily accessing the driveways themselves. So our proposal is to move the curb cut about 12 feet further to the west, and subsequently it'll line up evenly with the drive aisles and take away any kind of cause for people to not know if they're going to turn left or right, and this will help to move traffic a little simpler.
Let me ask a question.
Yes.
If I may.
You may.
Pointing to that south drive. You know, there's people parking in the church, going to church here. What if they live west of this property? What if some of the parishioners live just west down Harvard Street? And,
Okay.
you know, I know we talked
No,
about...
this is going to be, okay, I'm sorry, this drawing, the hook in it is not accurate.
Okay.
There will be no...
we talked about hooking it all along, and I think my fellow commissioner, Mr. Murat, brought this up, and I'm sorry if I'm stealing your...
Go for it, Marty.
But, you know, that's a wonderful idea, and we promote it all the time on site plans, and I'm not talking into my microphone. But here's a situation where there are parishioners, at least every week, sometimes more. Some of them may live down Harvard
No,
Street.
we
to the
already
west.
took, we
Okay,
learned,
good.
we
So we're gonna
recognized
utilize
that.
those handicap spaces.
Yeah, as soon as we recognized that we were cutting off that kind of an access, we changed it. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yes, that's an
that's
error.
fine.
That's an error here. Also, for the main entrance, there was a concern of the sidewalk. We have added a sidewalk onto the pork chop itself that will make again, a continuation. If we might go to the next drawing, Joe, please. There was next a concern to be able to demonstrate better the parking that will be designated for the church, and these are reserved church parking only spaces, and those are the ones that are the darkest hatching to the east and that drive aisle as well is exclusive to the church. The crosshatched or more gray spaces, those are the spaces that primarily we'll be using. Other than that, we, at this juncture, feel like we have an overflow that, we'll find as time goes on how it's all used. But right now, we've gone to extensive uses with extensive discussions with the church, its needs, its future needs, high holiday needs, and so on and so forth. And we believe that we'll be servicing everybody fully and properly. There still seems to be some contention within people of the community. There's nobody who's going to be more cognizant of this, ensuring that we are not going to have a parking problem. There was a parking problem elsewhere in your city along Woodward. It's something that we took great strides in from right off the bat to make sure it doesn't happen here. We don't want people parking on the streets. We don't want anything that's going to cause any harm for our neighbors. And that's the simplest way I can put it on that. Note. Next one is, and no, actually, the composite drawing. Okay, this is a drawing that is simply going to show you the composite of parking for both north and south of Harvard Road. And with that in mind, you'll be able to see the crosswalks that are now that are going to be installed and other elements that we'll be doing. But this is just to give you an overview of the parking.
Who's building the wall at the northwest corner, the east-west wall?
The east-west wall.
No, east-west wall, right there.
The north, yeah.
Who's building that wall? You or the church?
We're doing, our responsibilities with the church are we will take care of all design, construction, and maintenance. We have side agreements to reimbursements and so on, but it's that's under our purview.
Okay, the reason I ask is, it says refer to prior church drawing plans for the detail. Put the detail in these drawings. If it's part of this project, if it's the same detail, cool. But just put it on this set of drawings, what that wall is going to be, please.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Sure.
So, because they are separate, kind of, so.
They're separate approvals.
Mary and I have been actually sharing this composite now.
Mm-hmm.
There's every detail
Okay.
and every note.
We could,
That's fine.
Joe, if we could move to AA8, please.
Okay.
AA8, please.
All I'm saying is, that's a separate project. This is your project. You may have a page or a quarter of a page of identical details. Put those details on your project also.
Yeah.
Okay, please.
No problem, no
Okay,
problem.
good.
And I'd like to add, too, the narrative that's required as part of this project, and if you don't know where that is, that's in section 138-535, item little b.
If you want me to read it to you now, I'll be
No,
glad to.
I don't want the whole, I need a copy of it. I don't see
Yes,
it in my
ma'am.
packet. But,
It had been provided.
okay, did I throw it away or something? I don't remember. Do you have it? Okay, nonetheless, it needs to be with the full submission. Kind of note the stuff that you're taking care of, but it might belong to another party, so that we just know that it's being taken care of, but yet it's in
Just
there, like
to
this
make-
wall.
Sure. Anything just to make it simple for you. Anything that is going to be
Very
newly
simple.
constructed north of Harvard, that's our responsibility,
Very simple for us.
us. We're the guys. On the first elevation drawing, and that'll be the east, and on both the east and the west, there was again some suggestions of trying to coordinate the materials, the colors, and we've completed that element of it.
Can I ask a couple questions
Please.
on this, please? The elevation that's, well, it's the front elevation, I guess. The front elevation of this building. And it's actually in all the elevations. You know how I feel about EFS, and in my mind, I don't like it. And I know that Mr. Martin Smith is one of the people that drove this issue about having some contrasting materials used in the building. But in my mind, the EFS I'm not in favor of it in any way, shape, or form. I think there's too much of it.
We're down to 19%, Dave.
And I heard that number, but I believe it looks a lot more than that. But let me finish, if you will let me.
Mhm.
I would rather see that EFS replaced with similar brick of various shades. And I just think it makes the building read better, and I think it gives a quality to the building. And I have a lot to say about quality here tonight, but I'll get into that when we get into private conversations in about the building. You know that I've gone to the, I've laid down I've fallen on the sword over the project in the first project. And I didn't have a problem because we had the school building, because I felt that the school building was going to drive the quality of what the second building was going to be, because it would just have to be that kind of quality in order for you to market that secondary building. That school building is now gone away. And now I don't know exactly what I'm really getting in quality to this building. And so I'm very concerned about that from the standpoint of what is the city of Berkeley getting exactly. And I can get into more of what I mean by quality, but I'm going to get into some of the interior things that we don't really ever talk about that help drive why somebody would want to be in this building. And it gets into the materials used in the construction of this building. And so I have concerns because now I have no idea about what the interior quality of this building is going to be. And I think you owe the citizens, I think you owe us, and I think you owe the council some description of how materials and what kinds of materials are going to get into this and what level of grades you're going to use for this building. And not wait for a specification package that comes that nobody ever reads. But know that in my past lifetime, I've read every single one of them, and believe me, I found all kinds of things in them that we had to change. So my concern is I would like to see something, a narrative or something that's supplied that tells us something a little bit about finishes in the building. I'm talking about flooring and tile and ceramic tile. Is it going to be carpeted? Are we using hardwood flooring? I have no idea. I don't think anybody has any clue as to what those materials are. Because what I'm really coming down to is the longevity of this building and what is that quality and what is it, where do you see it? And I would like to know the answer to that question. And that's pretty much all I have to say tonight, except my only other comment about the whole thing is I think the building is slightly too large for this site. If you had it just seems like it's packed into the city, and I'm not sure as it being packed into the city, that's what Berkeley really is. That's my comments for the night.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Richardson.
I'm not going to get into general comment right now. I just want to say about the front and rear drawings. Every package you've presented has had a breakdown of the floors and the heights of the floors and the ceilings. They're all illegible to me. I have aging eyes, and I can't read I can't read it.
We'll make a better effort to ensure that it is more legible
I
for you.
also want you to give us the overall height of these buildings, the total height. I haven't seen that on any of your drawings.
It is on there, but
Well,
yes, you may have a
I
hard
told
time
you I
reading it.
can't read it.
Understand, no.
Please do a better job on that. Thanks.
With all due respect to you, to Dave Barnett, and as an architect, Dave, I'm not minimizing what you're saying. I do think that, there could be some ephes that accents the building to some extent. I would like to talk with you further about that. We're not looking to try to force it on there. And we have provided in our narratives from the past the materials as far as flooring, other elements of the units themselves. And we'll just put them to you, we'll give them to you again.
Yep.
Okay?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Shadle.
Just to add on to, I personally, I do like this version, but I personally like the electronic version as well. I find that much easier to read, although some of those dimensions are still very difficult to read, so. But what I would.
I got that one.
But what I would request is that they match. That they are the exact same set of plans.
Yes.
And one of the things that I noticed is that it seems on the east and west elevation of the townhomes, we've lost the windows.
No. You lost a round window, an oval window. We've replaced it with a squared or more rectangular.
On the east and west?
Oh, on the
facade?
east and west.
Yeah, there appears to be no windows whatsoever, whereas in the previous plans,
We did.
there was a multitude.
We did lose them. And that's because we tried to, we responded to your request of putting more texture into this building. So what we did was we flipped the interior portions of we flipped and married the floor plans so that we don't have those kitchens on the outside anymore. They're on the interior walls in order to get this contextual response and texture that you asked us to obtain.
Again, maybe it's a difference in the plans that we have. I have the exact same floor plan from the previous meeting that had windows. That's not acceptable to me. I just want to be
Very
clear.
simply,
It's not acceptable not
it's not
to
a
have,
problem.
to have that facing the east and west
No.
portions for the neighbors. That's
Commissioner,
needs
that's
to be
not a
addressed.
problem.
Okay, so this goes back to my detail, and I get you guys are busy and fast, and I get this is running fast and furious, and while I'm not an architect, have been in consulting and had to get something out the door very quickly, and I'm not saying we don't ever make mistakes, but y'all need to just stop for a minute, get a quality control person who just, stops, and all they do is double check everything against whatever the standard is to make sure that all this matches. Because this is the kind of stuff that makes us stop and dig in even deeper, and we keep finding more and more, and that's why we're also a little harsh tonight. Okay. Great. More comments? Lisa?
Towards the paying attention to detail, there's 3 different apartment sizes that are labeled wrong. 2 bedrooms are listed as 1 bedroom. A 1 bedroom is listed as a studio. There's north arrows that are pointing in the wrong direction. I mean, really go back and proofread all of those pages so that it's like what you would turn in for a grade to a teacher.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
since we're on the apartment buildings, I
Like
kind of had,
condos?
or condos, I mean, I kind of had an epiphany, because I've not liked anything you've presented. Last month, I kind of said I don't like that ridge going all the way across. So then I took a look back at the old plans when you were keeping the school, and it seemed as though you had more room for those condos and you had 2 buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a possibility to go back to that? Because I think that is what's hurting this building, in my opinion. It's just this big, long expanse of 1 building.
Reduce the
If we
number.
break it up, if you can afford to lose 1 condo, maybe 1 building's 4, 1 building's 3, you can give a little bit more space. I'm just saying, it's that long expanse. I mean, even in looking at 3D perspective.
The ridge line.
I still see it's just this big, long run of a building.
We can break it up further. Losing units becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, but if, what you're saying is that, you know, if we're able to set back, set up,
Yeah.
things
fine with
of that nature, it's not a big problem for us. We would be
It
happy
just
to
needs
accommodate
something,
that.
and-
We can't move, shift into the back, I want you to understand that.
Yeah.
But we can extend a little further into the front and,
I think you're at your setback.
Setback.
Yeah, I don't know that.
pardon me?
You're at
You're at
your
your
setback.
We are locked.
Yeah.
The reason that we had to lose the building in the middle is because the building up front is bigger.
I
So it moved us back 20
I
feet.
understood that. I looked at it and realized that's
And
what's
it
going on.
compressed the building in order to keep the unit count, to keep the viability economically sound.
Okay.
It's not easy to split this up at this point. Can we? Sure, it just means probably 2 units gone, maybe 1, but
No, Joe?
But then you could potentially make the units bigger, too, because really, you know, the other one, you had what, 10 feet between it or something?
oh no, it
but-
was good 20 feet.
Okay, all right.
More comments from the commission? Ms. Kathleen, we've not heard from you yet.
Do you, let me ask you a question, I'm not trying to, just thinking out loud. Would you have a problem with with another floor on these units? So that there is a loft, den, something of that nature? That helps the square footage for an end user, pardon?
What is the
So-
square footage right now?
We're at 1,400 usable, 1,800 with the garage.
So are you suggesting you could get rid of one of the units and provide that break if you went up a little bit?
I don't know exactly. I can't answer that exactly right now, but it's something I'm just thinking out loud. It gives us a little way to think, you know, to think a little bit more thoroughly about it.
Yeah, because, I mean, I look at the floor plan, and your old building was 80 feet wide. This is 160.
That's right.
How tall are these right now?
29 feet.
Hertz
They-
models back up here.
30 feet.
No, he didn't have.
No, I
all
think
of
we're
it.
at 20,
29.
26.
It's midpoint to the roof, 23, 24 feet.
24 feet? So you'd be adding at least another
According to the report, 29.
8 or 9 feet to it.
Yeah.
They have quite a bit of articulation to it.
So for since you bring that up for a point of comparison, I think previously you had this nice drawing where you showed us how this would look in the neighborhood. And we talked about adding Harvard Commons in, so we had that point of comparison. Is
And
that
we
in
have
there?
added it. Unfortunately, it's not available on Google Earth, which is usually what we use to transpose. So we've at least outlined, these are dimensions of the buildings. They're white.
It doesn't exist yet.
It doesn't exist on Google Earth, but we did put it in. It's on the plan, and it's in
Yeah,
the,
it's on the
It's on
plan.
the- It's on the first, it's
No.
on the cover.
and it's on the cover sheet.
I'm talking about in terms of, I guess, I don't see it on the cover sheet.
It's on there now. It's on there digitally. It was not
Oh,
reflected in the
okay.
packet
We don't
submitted to
have,
the
this is the new
commission.
drawing.
Again, we don't have matching plans, we're talking about two different things.
I see them in the background. Looks
Yeah.
like, they don't look like as nice as Harvard Commons. they're
But
big
you can get an
boxes.
idea of the height.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're much taller, Harvard Commons,
Yeah.
and clearly that would be too tall. for
That would
those
be too tall,
townhouses. Yeah,
yeah.
way too
Yeah, I
tall.
have
And I
concerns
don't know
about
that going up, no, I wouldn't go up another
Yeah.
floor personally.
It's not, it's a kind of a half floor just to finish it off.
You know, if I may add on to that, you know, these have bugged me, obviously, for a long time, and I think everybody knows that. Tim, I think that's a great idea, and I find it hard to believe you can't lose one unit to take out one condo. And you know, we can discuss, we don't need to discuss it tonight. We're just throwing things out. This is a discussion, but I think that would go a long way to me being very happy with what you're doing. And Tim, I think it's so simple, I just blew by it. It just never, I think it goes back to when you and I were talking about the big office building curtain wall. It was so obvious that was the problem on the previous building. Dave, if you remember that conversation, boom, there it is. And I think that would go a long way to making me very happy with what we have here.
Marty, we want to make you happy. Okay?
Yeah, you want to make her happy.
Nobody wants to make me happy.
We do.
It's not true.
Do, Marty.
Marty, you've had some very productive suggestions.
Let's go back to the building elevations. Now, we have a light color and several orangish red colors. My understanding is that the orangish red on the front elevation, that's all brick. The light is what you're proposing as EIFS.
That's correct.
Okay. What about the rear? Is that orange also brick?
Yeah, it's the same brick.
Okay.
Brought them last month.
Yeah,
They brought all
I
the
brought
samples
them.
in last
I
month.
know. I just want to make sure it's not labeled, each section isn't labeled, and I'm just want to make sure. Now, what we don't see is the two inside faces.
It's all brick.
It's all brick?
It's all brick.
Okay.
Oh, is it?
It's, yes, it is.
Is it?
Excuse
Yes.
me.
Okay.
Front and back, these ends, as they move through the building.
Oh, the sides, okay.
These
The
ends,
interior, the courtyard
these,
sides.
these are, that brick.
In the courtyard
brick,
as well.
Brick.
Those are 100% brick? Okay.
North and
100%.
south,
Oh, yeah.
inside is all brick,
Oh,
okay.
are they?
Yeah.
We need to see those elevations.
No, east and west has some EFS,
Right.
but north and south interiors are all brick.
Okay.
That's fair.
EFS.
Because we talked about maybe cutting a building section through there so we could see those elevations. Because they're big elevations. I talked about that. I saw it in my notes last month.
Okay.
And, okay, well, it does show it there. Okay, I will, I can accept that.
All brick.
Okay.
That's why we,
And if,
Marty?
through the chair, if I could,
Perfect.
Marty?
Oxford Tower.
through the chair,
Okay.
if I could speak to Mr. Barnett at some point relative to his thoughts on the EFS and colorization, we'd be happy to.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
I'm
Yes.
going to bring up something that I probably only brought up 6 or 8 times. HVAC units.
Yes, sir.
This is a contract,
Yes,
the PUD.
yes.
Are you going rooftop or are you going individual units? Because if you're going individual units, you're going to have 134 screens on this building.
Damn.
And we want to see them if that's the way you're going.
We
Because
understand.
a decision has to be
The
made.
decision will be made very shortly.
Okay.
Okay. We have been analyzing several different systems, and yes, we absolutely recognize that if we go with a wall pack, there will be grills that'll be shown.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going
And-
through my notes here.
And with that in mind as well, we will potentially be changing some elements in the interior of the spaces or on the balcony to add an exchange area. So you know what I'm referring to.
And here's a very minor thing, maybe you have it now, but you talked about the bike racks on your amenities. I didn't see them. Maybe they're on there, but make sure you get them on there.
They're on there.
Okay, I blew by. Doesn't matter. That's such a minor thing. Just so make sure you have them.
Bike racks, bike racks. Covered, covered.
Oh, I did look there. Okay, those are, that's bike storage.
Okay, so we just fly through this one while it's up. We'll also have, again, if, Joe, if you could go to the right, do we show the access lane? Okay, as well as we'll have some electrical outlets for hybrid cars and electric cars.
My question was, what if somebody parks badly there, but you've added a marked lane to get access to the dumpsters?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Okay. People park badly
Okay,
and-
and again, ventilation, these are items relative to the mechanical that we will get into at the later date, but between our openings, the screening that we're using on the podium, there will be an airflow that's going to be going through there, and we'll be forcing it as well.
Okay, and this was brought up by our new council person, Ms. Kempner. The floor plans, the unit plans. These plans don't necessarily reflect your schedule. Now, again, this is a contract. If you were going to have, if this is the schedule, your analysis here is going to be these many, this number of one-bed studios, whatever, that is what has to be on the final plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, no dispute. It just that you can hopefully understand from our perspective, within your guidelines, it calls for typical, and yes, some of them are off by a few square feet, and that's what happens until we get down to the construction docks.
Well, I agree with Ms. Kempner. I mean, there's some that are listed as a studio, and they're obviously a one-bedroom, and vice versa, and it's a mixture, it's a hodgepodge, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
So
and
please clear that up.
We're wrong. We're wrong.
Please clear that up.
You're right. You're
And
wrong.
as I get to the top floor plan, please draw a penthouse plan. And I
Yeah.
think there's some confusion. Penthouse does not mean luxury apartment here, it means rooftop
Yeah,
equipment.
Rooftop and
Yes.
So I just want to make that very clear. So
Understood.
just draw it, and I know it depends on what you ultimately do with your dwelling unit HVAC.
Yes, it
But
will change.
as far as I'm concerned, that extension on the roof is a nice element on this building. If it was dead flat across, but, you know, it's not considered a roof screen, penthouse, you know, which is really a roof screen with a roof over it, you know, and enclosed, much like your stairwell access, those two little knobs.
Those will definitely need to be there. I think you know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And you'll
The
need
pen-
for
the
elevators, too.
penthouse.
Well, the elevators are inside the penthouse. See,
Yeah.
that's another reason for the penthouse.
But
is
it
you have the
may be-
overrun in your two elevators.
That's
that have
correct.
You have to have it.
That's correct.
And half of this is a 70-ton chiller.
No, we don't know that we're going to be using.
But you don't know,
chiller.
but the point is, it could very well be a wall, a screen, you have
That's
other
right.
things going in there. It may ultimately be your two elevator overruns,
And an
and
emergency
the rest,
generator.
and it could be your generator if you want to put it up there. But it could also be, the rest of it just decorative, or a roof screen. You have other things, you have some HVAC possibly in your activity spaces and things. So, as an element on the building, I think that's a superior way of doing it, rather than putting a box, we see that all the time, shoe boxes in buildings.
Right.
So, I think you've worked it well into the elevation, the facade of the building. Now, again, it may not all be a mechanical penthouse. There's no apartments in there, nobody living up there, no office up there, no nothing. But most of it may ultimately just be a screen, empty space with a screen around it.
That
and
is
that's
correct.
fine. Good.
That's correct.
And
Good.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to add, if you look in this photo of the Google Earth, and you see Oxford Towers behind here, look what it has, a big.
Yeah, there's a big penthouse there.
Oh, absolutely.
It's 20 feet high.
Yeah, it's probably 2 stories high.
Yeah,
It is. I put those antennas up there.
plus antennas.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah, it's a huge penthouse. And to go with your dimensions, here's a minor thing. But, you know, this is why I talked about the building. Your building, your condos are 20 feet on center. That's fine. But the overall building is 160 feet. You got some walls on the end, so there's really 161 and a half feet. So I know it's this much, but I just want to make sure you're consistent, because you're not going to go out to out, I don't think, unless you are. Center to center, you're demising walls, but you have another 9 inches on each end.
They're probably 2 walls, you know, the stacked firewalls. We have a choice here because of the ground to roof to actually separate them without the sprinkler component, and we may elect to do that acoustically and fire separation. There'll probably be 2 walls between each one and from floor to deck.
I'm just getting at, your 160 number may be a little smaller than what it really is, and that's what I'm getting at.
Well, there's space on the
We'll
ends here.
Yeah,
We'll
that's all.
ensure that.
We don't have to get into it
Yeah.
tonight. I just want to make sure.
Right.
And I honestly, I think and on the inside corner of the site plan, which would be right here, I think you have a couple photometric numbers that are a little high. Just check it. I am having trouble reading it. Just check it.
Okay, we have, and there is no spillover.
Okay, just check it. It just looks like they're rather high from what I could read, but it's microscopic, and even with my magnifying glass, I couldn't read it. So the renderings are helping a lot.
I have to apologize for the quality that you got. It was sent from Traverse City, and it got digitized and fuzzed out. These are, you can see they're much more refined at this point.
They're
Sorry,
helping a
folks.
lot.
The amount of time over the holidays was crippling.
We understand.
All
I
right.
think, I'm sorry, but I think
Would
those
you
are-
like,
Ms. Kapelansky?
One thing I'm waiting to see, and I've mentioned it a couple times, is incorporating some of those low-impact development strategies, particularly maybe in the public plaza, show us a demonstration rain garden, show us something to kind of incorporate some of those concepts into the plan. And I think I mentioned it at a couple of meetings.
the area's a little too small for a rain garden. I'd like to do one, but I guess All right, what we've got in there are stone tables with inlaid game boards, benches, statues, and artwork. We'll be relocating the flagpole honoring that was given from the American Veterans and, from the Veterans Legion Hall, and dedicating a plaque to Our Lady of La Salette. So if you could, be a little bit, give me a little bit more direction there.
I guess I'm kind of looking for you to suggest some ideas of what you might use to incorporate that into the site plan. I mean, I know we're not getting into the detail of landscape types yet, but.
No, actually, we did.
Well,
You
not,
have Lampstead design, but you are required by the site plan standard to do stormwater engineering, which includes the proposed grading and then all of the calculations and
That's
your
understood.
drainage and the LID. Those are elements that help offset some of your stormwater retention needs. So you can propose what you like, but.
or at least provide a narrative explaining what you've looked at and why they cannot be incorporated into this site.
Right.
That's good.
Madam Chair?
Yep, go ahead, Ms. Shannon.
Aye.
Sorry, oh, I'm sorry,
Can I-
Mr. Richardson, sorry.
My colleagues are doing a great job of helping you finish the design of the building. I think that's admirable. I don't have the expertise to help much with that. My concern is the impact of the development on the neighborhood and the community, the externalities that go along with this this project. And I'm not even looking necessarily for a reaction from you tonight. I just want to express my concerns, and because I don't want to ever have you feel I've sandbagged you or been silent when I've been invited to speak. And I have two big concerns about externalities. One is the height of the building. The other is the lack of green space on the site. And they're related, I think. The provision of the plaza was a step in the right direction. I give you some credit for that. I don't think that plaza is going to be very successful. I don't think it's really going to be terribly viable as a public space. It's too isolated. Along those lines, if you could, and maybe you're going to tell me you've already, and I have overlooked it, I don't know, but I would like the dimensions.
We haven't asked for that, and we will be.
Yeah, I'd like to know how big that really is.
It's
But all of
a
my,
quarter acre.
okay, all of my prior comments at prior meetings have to do with making whatever public space is provided usable and viable and practical, okay? So I would like you to think hard about this issue because I believe that PUD is a two-way street. We don't waive our normal zoning requirements without public benefits that extend beyond the residents of the community to the overall community. As to the building height, I'm not concerned really with the impact of the height of the building on the residential neighborhood. I think you've moved it far enough away, and I think the townhouses provide a transitional element. I've been in favor of the townhouses as we go along. We can quibble about their design, but I do favor that. But I do think that the height is an incongruity right along Coolidge itself. By my understanding, it's going to be a building 3 times as tall as any other buildings along, 2 times as tall as any other buildings along that strip. And I think it's just going to kind of stick out for that reason. Related to that is the fact that the building sits so close, the wings of it sit so close to the sidewalk on Coolidge. You know, that's not a very pedestrian-friendly experience, I don't think, is going to be created by walking by that really tall building. I think and I run into a brick wall on this from you guys. Don't even react now if you don't want to, but I would be much more comfortable if the building was lowered by one floor, and that would free up some of the parking requirement that you could devote to additional green space, which would be to a public benefit here. And it would create a building that is over 100 units and would provide virtually all of the community benefits you're providing now, plus a whole lot more, I think, if you did that. You've told me time and again you can't do that, you can't afford to do that. I'm in no position to make that decision for you. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from,
Mark,
and I'm not telling you how I'm going to vote either, but
with all
if you...
respect,
if
with
you,
all respect, we are trying.
Yeah, if you want to persuade me on this, you can at least discuss these concerns and explore how they're not going to be the kind of problem that I'm suggesting that they might be. You know, I mean, if you want to, I'm open to persuasion on it, okay? But I am concerned, and I want true public benefits out of this, and I want a facility here that does not jarringly contrast with the rest of the streetscape along there. And most of our comments have been about the neighborhood. I think you've met that problem. I'm concerned with the streetscape of Coolidge now, and that's what my comments are directed toward. So I'm laying that out there, that's all.
I understand we haven't ignored that.
Okay.
Never. Never
Well, you
have
put the
ignored it.
plaza in, I mean, I understand.
And truly,
Yeah.
This is a high-risk proposition. If we don't have the number of units, the scale that we are offering, and by shifting it up front, which was the purpose, was to get it away from the neighborhood.
I understand.
And I'm not saying, you know, this is what we have to achieve. It's just that simple. I don't know how else to put it. You had asked to see if we could put some kind of a walk path through the parking lot. It's a security risk that we feel concerned about. Other elements that could, you know, possibly achieve some way of giving any kind of other public benefit. We will get into the public benefits. They have been ignored, with all due respect. They have not been ignored.
I didn't say you ignored it.
Yeah, we're doing our best. How was that, too?
Well, I take your word, but these are my concerns.
Ms. Kemper.
One of the things that we have to look at when we're examining this is how it relates contextually to the other buildings around it and the residential buildings. So it is concerning when it's twice as high as anything else can be built on Coolidge. That's not horribly contextual, and it's a big mass that's all right there. There's no, you know, step backs to make it appear smaller in mass. It's just there. And so contextually, that's a bit of a problem on Coolidge, I think.
And just so that you understand, we were encouraged to bring it up to Coolidge. as
Oh, I'm
close as
certainly not
possible.
saying it should be back in the neighborhood. I just mean that, I mean, it is what it is. It's a great big building, and it is right there, and it's taller than anything else.
Well, it's taller, yes, it is. It is. It only happens to be about 20 feet taller than the existing building. I'm not trying to, you know, again, ignore what you're saying. But we are trying to also put together something that's viable, that will stand there for a long time. I mean, we could cheapen this thing down, but that's not going to attract whom
It's in the master plan.
I think everybody wants to come to the retail, commercial sites along there. You lack parking. You know, if I might suggest, you lack parking along Coolidge. And with that, it has a restriction on the kind of business or the amount of business that commercial businesses can do. Whereas if we bring in this kind of a product, it encourages walkability. And walkability is what towns are thriving more and more on now. The first steps, these baby steps, they're hard. They really are. There's no question about it. What may it lead to in the future is a continuation. It's happened in other communities. You've probably seen some of them. And we're trying to do everything that we can to make those statements. We want to put in a high-quality product. We really and truly do. We want to keep something that's affordable for the range of residents, and we are aiming in at Berkeley consumers as well. And there's a scale here that keeps bending back and forth with take away something or take off something, and it brings down what we're able to do, what we're able to offer, and the product won't be the same. And there's a balance in here. I don't know how else to really.
I guess my question for you, and certainly don't answer it at this moment, let it like sit there and simmer, is it being balanced? Because this is really high, and we've talked about height on a number of, since the beginning, right? We've talked about height. That never really goes down. The density didn't seem to go down. So there doesn't seem to be a balance. It seems to be very much, this is what I absolutely have to do. And there has to be give and take, right? I can't get rid of a townhouse because I can't afford that. I can't go down because we can't afford that. I get that. But if there's not a give and take, then this is a problem. Then it shouldn't be under a PUD. Then you should build under a site plan.
I understand, except that the give and takes that we were trying all along, and again, I'm not trying to be flippant in any way about this. We have truly tried to put forth a good product that needs this kind of support and will still be affordable. And I think some of the things that are being suggested just kind of break the mold. And I don't know what else to do to explain that. We're business people. This is a line of work that we exceed exceptionally well in, and we believe it to be a long-term benefit for the community. If we strike too much off of it, it cheapens the product. If we go to this
is what
this
could
is
be
the
done
drawing.
by the
This is the
ordinance.
drawing that actually is probably the best illumination of it, and this is what we're allowed to do by the current zoning. The current zoning allows us to use the existing building as an office. As an office, we don't have to do much to turn it around to make it into a incubator space office. It will attract a lot of cars. Those cars will come in at much more concentrated times and will be a greater impact, in our opinion, upon the city.
This is different than what's in our packet, yes?
No, this was in our packet.
No, what's in your packet?
This is an old packet.
Was
Old
that,
drawing.
yeah, you have one that shows the former school, I'm sorry, the former apartment buildings we were going to do. We thought we were past that.
In your
So-
in your version now, would you have enough parking for it?
Yes. Meets the ordinance. Bingo.
This meets the ordinance. This would allow for a 3-story multiple building to be put virtually right on Oxford and as far west as it's sitting right now, and that's basically within a few feet of the property line. And we will not be able to put in, because it's going to be, it won't have the mass, we won't be able to put the amenities in. And that's, where again, so just so that you understand the balances that, what is good for long-term. And again, I think this is a hard thing for everybody to get their arms around. There's short-term and long-term views. The short-term, for people to get adapted to something new, something different, that's hard. That is hard sometimes. But in the long term, I can't imagine personally, professionally, ourselves, our group, our partners, a lot of other people that we've communicated with in all kinds of capacities, professional capacities, think this is just a fabulous project. And I'm not trying to pat ourselves in the back. We have worked really diligently on detail. We messed up here on this presentation. I'm sorry. I just will say that very simply. We messed up. We were rushing to try to get it in. Holidays, everything else. Not trying to make excuses, just we are dedicated to putting in a high-quality project. And we have never had anything that fails, bankrupts, hidden behind anything, anybody. We can call out long-term success rates because we really know what we're doing. And I don't know how to convey the words trust us. You can't simply do that. We're trying to demonstrate it to you every which way we possibly can. And it is, I think, as Michelle explained the last meeting, it's a process. And it'll continue to be a process.
Thank you. Marty?
I'd like to make a quick clarification, because this will make the highlight reel next month. When I did this to Mr. Richardson, meaning twice as tall, that's current buildings. In the Coolidge ordinance, they're allowed to go 40 feet. It's still taller, I grant that, but it's not, 2 or 3 times taller than what's allowed in the Coolidge district.
Is this the Gateway District, though?
No,
Isn't this the
this
Gateway
is
District, or
Office
is this technically the
District.
Coolidge District?
Yes, this is Coolidge District.
The
Office,
if I may, the parcels on either side of the the way it's currently parceled, both the school property and the church are on the same parcel, zoned office. To the north and to the south immediately are both Coolidge District.
okay, I stand corrected, yeah, and it's 30 feet for office. But the Coolidge District, all along Coolidge, we are allowed 40 feet. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Exactly.
And this is a little bigger. I mean, it is bigger. I mean, it is. But it's not 2 or 3 times what we would allow along the length of the Coolidge District.
So, all right, I think, do we have any additional questions that are burning questions for the applicant?
I'd like a little more information. On this drawing, above the podium,
Yes, sir.
what construction type? 5A?
5A.
Okay. Do you have any firewalls?
Oh, of course,
Oh,
there's
yes.
at the staircases, but that's
No,
it.
no, 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 no. I mean
Oh,
firewalls.
No, every apartment is
I
separated by
understand. No,
a
no,
half
I meant
hour.
firewalls.
No,
Okay.
no.
Get the construction type, some basic code information on here. I'm just
Yep.
Yes,
pulling
sir.
it out.
No, I've already, yeah, you got it.
Are your stairwells and elevator shafts
Oh, of
Yeah.
course.
going to be?
Fire separation, those are
They're
fire
going-
separation.
Those are
walls.
sacred
masonry?
spaces.
They're going to be masonry?
Probably. We don't have the structural analysis done yet, Dave. But
Okay.
chances are, that the answer is yes, because we need the structural
Yeah.
support.
Okay.
Ms. Kaplansky?
One quick thing, if you could just provide the percentage of open space somewhere on the plan?
I think
I looked all around, I didn't see it.
You know, it's changed so much, I think I lost it.
So,
Okay.
just provide that.
I
Okay.
just so you know, I calculated, I'm sorry.
I have to call Ms. Shadle, who's been patiently waiting.
Not a problem. Very easy. You've heard it multiple times. And I know that we have discussed it in the past, but just clarification next time we meet as to what your intent is for loading and unloading zones. I think it's a great point, and I think that should be discussed next time you come.
understood, and just to make a very quick statement, that's done in the podium area, and it will go through the elevators, and that's how we'll be handling it.
I think we discussed it last time. Right, Mr. Richardson?
Following up on Ms. Kaplinsky, I did a calculation of open space. I put your lot coverage for the entire parcel at 37%, which is slightly over the coverage we would ordinarily allow for multifamily. Just letting you know that's what I came up with, but I think you need to come up with.
Okay.
Yeah, we have
No problem.
we have
Something
23% green
accurate.
space, but we will
problem.
clarify all that for you.
All right.
We're not going to say that what we got in here is totally adequate. Okay, can't.
Okay.
Okay.
Just one additional drawing I just want to make mention of so everybody understands that we do have a preliminary drawing for civil engineering that we had discussed with your Department of Public Works, your consultants, and there's a reason that it wasn't included, and that was simply because we were told this is an issue that we can set off to the side until we get through site plan approval with
So-
City Council.
I want to make this very clear that you are to follow this application process for site plan for a PUD, okay? Under section, Division 18, 138, 531, and so all the way down that section, and it refers you to a couple other sections, and there is a 19-point set of required information in 138.680, and then there is a narrative. I know you gave us a narrative. Your narrative is about the 7 recognized benefits or potential recognized benefits. Great, but that is not what we asked for. The narrative report shall follow 138-535, and it has 9 distinct elements. So all of that must be in your next package, line by line, and if you want to create a spreadsheet, I don't care how you want to do it, if you want to illuminate it, it doesn't matter to me, but it will follow, and I don't want to go searching for it, guys. I seriously want it laid out. Make my job easier. I'm tired of digging through this stuff. I'm tired of looking for everything. This should be easy, and you have good quality consultants on your team to do this for you. Find some intern to make it happen. All right,
If I may,
go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry. We have to clarify this is a very expensive point. The extent of the engineering that you expect to see next time. This is showing that everything is doable. Math is math. We can solve the problem. We have the land mass to do it. It's a very expensive
I understand, and we're not suggesting, what's required on here is not like every full construction package of documents, okay? And I know that there might be on there, but there's a required element of how it's presented to us, okay? And I don't, do I have that?
No.
That's okay, so.
We don't have that.
Yeah, so, okay. this
We
isn't-
just were asked.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay. And I mean, again, read our ordinances, read them thoroughly.
I read that, it could be misconstrued or agreed to for full complement of $100,000 worth of
Yeah,
engineering docs.
No, we've never asked for that
contingent.
from
May I-
anybody.
may I-
We've
may
never
I
asked
ask
for
a
that
Let's
from
simple-
anybody.
clarify that.
May
Please.
I ask a simple remedy here? If I might suggest that your civil engineering consultant, if what he has seen is adequate at this point?
That's not the question, and we will get that from him when he may or may not have had a chance to review that. But that is typically what happens, the preliminary site plan. We don't ask for a full set of construction level design documents.
Thank you.
But we do ask for a simple, you have an elevation map and a flow map. We can do a simple calculation,
We've
whether it's a
done that.
1-hour flow or a 3-hour flow or an 18-hour flow or whatever it's based on anymore.
Thank you.
I'd have
You've
to-
already clarified it. Thank you.
If this was under conventional zoning, we need that type of a site plan. or
Right.
Site plan review.
Right.
That's a good way to put it.
Thank you. I just needed
So,
that
okay, very
said,
good.
clarified. Okay,
So,
thank you.
as I stated at the beginning of this section of the meeting, we have 2 choices to us. We can postpone, or we can deny. So I'm going to entertain a motion from the board.
I'll make a motion to
Mr. Murad, what was your motion?
postpone the plan unit development to
When?
when? When do you guys want to come back?
Might you highlight the dates for just a
Dates are,
moment? Dates
our
are
next
we-
meeting is January 23rd or February 27th.
Can,
I'm
um,
sorry,
can-
this is not a public comment section of the meeting. I appreciate,
We will be back to you within a couple of days and we will be, if we have, I'm sorry, today's 9th, so we have 11th.
It's 2 weeks or
Yeah.
6 weeks.
okay, so we don't have to
No, I
have a
understand.
date on.
No, we
on the
don't
motion.
need it.
Your motion
No.
can merely say we postpone to some indefinite time.
Date to be determined.
So,
To be
post-
determined.
Yes, sir.
and we will be able to answer you of if it will be on the 23rd or the next.
Okay.
Okay, good.
scheduled meeting.
We're making a motion. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Call the roll.
I'm sorry, who was? Me.
First and second.
Postpone till a date unknown.
No,
The date to be determined.
TBT.
Yes.
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 Hmm?
Okay, very good. That portion is over. We will now go to liaison reports.
No, you've got an added
just
item.
say-
I have an added item. Oh,
I might just say thank
You're
you
welcome.
and apology for some of the incompleteness.
thank you, thank you. I have an added item.
Just
Oh,
pull this out.
the
Schedule.
calendar of meetings.
Schedule.
We have a memo dated January 9th from
Thanks for your
this,
help, guys.
from
Thank
Tim
you.
McLean, our new community development director, with a schedule of meetings, and it has been amended to include a regular meeting on the 23rd of January. I have a motion to approve.
Motion to
this-
approve.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Call the roll?
I have a comment.
Oh, we have a comment, sorry, discussion.
Not knowing 6 months ago that this might come to a head on February 27th, I'm going to be out of commission February 20th. Well, that's kind of funny, we're on the commission. I will not be here February 27th.
Okay.
I will not even be close. So, just for what that's worth, and not much, but I will not be here.
I think it means a shorter meeting, Marty.
I might not be.
I'm not done yet. So, that could be very true, but I just want to let everybody know
Yep.
if that, well, they're gone here, but
And I might not be here either. I'm taking a class in February that might require me to be unavailable that night.
We have two gone, that's still a quorum. And an odd number at that. All right, we have, any more discussion on the agenda? Or I'm sorry, the calendar? Could we take the roll, please?
sure, yes.
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 Yes. Okay, now liaison reports. DDA,
Is Joe?
Joe's not here.
Joe's not here. Environmental Committee,
Did not meet in December. Anticipate meeting in later on this month. Agenda to be determined.
Chamber.
Chamber meets tomorrow.
We need a new liaison for ZBA. Ms. Kempner, you're sitting in the seat that used to occupy that. Would you like to be that liaison?
On
the spot?
I don't have, well,
The right answer is you'll think about it.
yeah, the problem is the babysitter, because my
Okay.
husband's on that one, so.
Okay. Oh, understood. Okay. Maybe he can give you a report and you can report back. Is there any other?
Council?
Council, city council. I did not go. I'm sorry. I did not go, but we didn't have anything before them. I'm sorry. My life's been a little crazy.
Well, I've been crazy too, so
So,
I wasn't there either.
so I do not have a report.
I'll cover
I
it.
will I will watch it. It's on tape. It's on
I'll
DVR,
cover
so. Okay.
We'll report to each other then.
Commissioner staff comments very quickly around the table. Anybody? Marty, start with you.
Yeah, regarding the, I didn't get to finish, which isn't unusual with my comments in the beginning of this meeting. Regarding the three-story building being a high-rise, that is in our high-rise district, which this is not. I'm aware of that, and I was going to talk about that. And it's purely saying any multifamily in a high-rise residential dwelling of 3 stories or more, it doesn't define it as 3 stories or more, shall have at least one property line on the proposed site abutting a major thoroughfare, Woodward, Coolidge, Greenfield, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll be happy to discuss that with somebody if they want to further, but I absolutely stand by my earlier remarks.
Very good. Mr. Richardson.
My comment on that is it doesn't really make any difference to me whether this would be have to be rezoned as a high-rise in the event the PUD is rejected. That's way, way too theoretical for me. I want to focus on what's in that high-rise portion of the ordinance. There are greenbelt requirements, there are landscaping requirements, won't go into the details, but they're there for a reason, to make the building more compatible with the neighborhood, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Ms. Kapelanski.
One comment to kind of follow up on those things. If we could have in that chart, that nice chart you provided, Tim, that showed the comparison to the existing zoning and what's proposed, maybe include the high-rise district in the standard, just to give us another point of comparison. That would be really helpful. And welcome aboard.
Mr. Moret.
I'm going to welcome two people aboard.
Yeah, I
First, our
forgot
new
to do
commissioner. Welcome aboard. And Tim, good to meet you tonight. And then a question for Matt. A number of years ago, a bunch of us commissioners went to the citizen planner training up in Oakland County. I think it's sponsored by MSU. Is that something we can look at adding to the budget or find some money since we have a couple new commissioners? I know she's a planner, but
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it's worthwhile to increase our training.
because it was a great.
It was a good program.
I know Tim and I have already been exchanging emails as we lock into the various professional networks, MAP and others, where we can try to get a schedule of opportunities to put forth to this body.
Yeah, because I know.
Oakland County's got a couple good things coming up that they're hosting, and then MAP does as well.
Yeah, because I know Amy worked with the city manager at that time, got some funds set aside.
Yeah.
And I think it was open to everybody on the planning commission, everybody on the ZBA, and a whole bunch of us were in the same class together.
I think there are
think
8
it
of
was-
us up there.
Yeah, I think it was every month, it was, yeah, it was every
several
Monday
years.
night, and it was really worth it, so.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay.
Mr. Barnett.
No, I have nothing this evening.
Ms. Shadle.
Again, welcome. Also wanted to just a shout out to DPW with the water main issues that we've had here lately, and with the snow removal and whatnot. Appreciate their work as always. And as always, thank you to all the residents and the non-residents that showed up tonight to voice their opinions as well. Just continue to stay involved, please. Thank you.
Ms. Kempner.
I'd just like to say that I'm super excited to be out here, and I would like to echo thanking people to come and be involved and speaking. These get to be long meetings, I know, and it's hard to sit and wait for your turn to talk, but we are thankful to hear your voices when you do.
And I would like to thank the public for adhering to the time limits, because that made sure that everybody had opportunity to talk, and we got out of here at a relatively decent hour. I'd like to welcome Ms. Kempner and Mr. McLean to our ranks, and I'd also like to state for the record that I think everything is tall. I'm 5'2.5", so quite frankly, everything is tall.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Do they have anything to comment?
Do Mr. Baumgartner and Mr. McLean have anything to add? You speak as one.
On behalf of everyone at this table, no.
I have one point, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify earlier, Mr. Baumgarten referenced my age as being 29. I'm 29 and a half.
Thank you, thank you. And a newlywed, if I recall. And Mr. Henry, do you have anything to add?
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Okay. Well, then at 10:32, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Done. Thank you.